Well, welcome back, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're excited to have you back for day 3 of the kickoff conference. Just want to say a big thank you to all of you, to all of our presenters who have shared, been willing to share what their school's been doing and all the great things happening, and to really all of you that are on here with all the comments and questions and good vibes being sent out. So we really appreciate it. It's really motivated us and our team. And I know speaking with a lot of you, it's done the same. So excited to be back for day 3. We're going to talk whole school engagement today. So when you think about Unified Champion Schools, I know a lot of times you have your core group of leadership students who help you kind of drive the program. You've got your sports participants who participate in unified sports or fitness and those activities, and then how do you tie in the rest of your school population? How does it really become sort of infused in your school culture and adopted as kind of a school mantra, the unified movement? So we're excited to share today and kind of help with that, help spread the word amongst your school. And I know we had a good conversation at the end of the day yesterday on getting administrator buy-in. It was a perfect lead into today. So we're going to visit some of that again. So here's kind of our schedule. We're going to do a welcome and overview. We're going to kind of jump into the leadership launch, which you heard about a little bit yesterday, and some of those youth summits that happened throughout the year. Then we're going to hear again from more of our educators. We've got Ann Pulowski from Holland Christian, Joan Robertson from Grand Blanc, and then Maddie Warden, who's one of our statewide YAC members from Swartz Creek. She's going to jump on and share as well, so we're excited to hear from her, which would be a great lead into tomorrow. We're very excited because we have a lot of our statewide YAC students who are presenting, and they've got some really good topics. They're going to share about some intergenerational leadership and ways to empower your youth activation committee. So we hope you're excited about that as well, because they're very geared up. A lot of videos. Some of them are going to be presenting live. We've got a panel. So think about some questions today and tonight that maybe you want to ask some of our YAC students, because we're going to have a panel where we're going to be able to ask them the hard questions and get the real answers from them. So very excited. Danielle's worked really closely with them to prepare them, and they actually came to her with some really great topics. So after we hear from our educators, we're going to talk about changing the culture in your building and how you can get more students involved, ways that you can implement this with some things that you're already doing maybe. We're going to talk about some of our virtual resources that we've created, how you can continue to enact change beyond your core group of students, even if in a virtual world. And then we're going to talk about empowering your youth in YAC, so that'll lead into tomorrow's discussions. And then again, from 3 to 4 today, we're going to be available, just hanging out. It's been fun the last couple of days, so feel free to join us for a hump day happy hour from 3 to 4. You can hang out with staff and ask some questions. We had some good discussion yesterday as well, which leads to our next slide. Oh, after this slide, I forgot I threw in a pop quiz question. So real quick, chat. First 3 answers. What is one example of a unified sport you could do to fulfill that component of UCS? Feel free to throw it in the chat. And the first 3 different answers we get are going to win some SOMI swag, some SOMI gear. So Jamie's going to be monitoring that closely. Start off this morning, get your brains going. So think about those unified sports and fitness components. What is one of those examples that you can utilize to fulfill that component of UCS? So one thing we wanted to talk about, and Ann asked about it during our happy hour yesterday, is there's a big announcement that rolled out. I believe it was February, January, sometime in those winter, spring months, that Special Olympics Michigan is now owner of the largest Special Olympics training center in the country. And so we put in a bid and received a very good price for the former Grand Rapids South Christian High School down in Grand Rapids, and purchased that, and we're turning it into the Unified Sports and Inclusion Center. And so it's going to be really a key hub for Special Olympics Michigan programming. It's very exciting. If you kind of look at what a lot of state programs for Special Olympics are starting to do, they're building a lot of training centers. New Jersey has one, Massachusetts has one, I think Texas has something similar, where not only is it an office for staff, but many of them have fitness centers for athletes to utilize. They have sports facilities. And so when you look at when you're putting on different events all throughout the state and have state events and everything, you're often renting facilities. We may have the opportunity now to have our own facilities we don't have to rent, and we can rent them out to other organizations. So very exciting announcement. Obviously, it's over in Southwest Michigan. Our staff, up until March, we're working out of the offices. And so it was pretty turnkey. I mean, what's nice about it is it's a school that's in great condition, and the South Christian school community, they had a huge fundraiser and built a new school down the road. And so we worked very closely with them on getting the Unified Sports and Inclusion Center. So a couple quick stats on it. This is sort of the front door there. You kind of saw the back aerial view. It's 120,000 square feet. I think the next biggest one is about 1/6 that from other state programs. So it's very large scale, on 16 acres of land. You saw there's on the outdoor fields, there's soccer and a football field and a softball field or two. It's got 2 gymnasiums on the inside. We're going to add in some permanent bocce courts and put a track around it. We're in the middle of a capital campaign that we have a cabinet for. The good thing about the capital campaign is it's not going to cost our organization any of our programming funds. So, the fundraising that we do to keep costs down and to allow our areas and schools to come to events, it's not going to necessarily change that. It's seeking out new funding that, people want to put their name on a building or on a court or something of that nature. So, what's great about it as well is because it is so large, we have some partner organizations that are utilizing one of the wings, so helping us offset costs with some, with rental payments. And what's nice is I think so far it's all been organizations that service individuals with disabilities. So, it's our true partners. We're excited about that. And so it can really be not only a hub for Special Olympics and our programming and what we're doing, it really is hopefully it kind of becomes a all service center for people with disabilities and a place that they can call home. Got a 700-person auditorium. It even has an old shop room and an old like home ec room. So lots of different things. One of the cool things that came about with our announcement is Special Olympics North America reached out to us when we announced the building and said, hey, we have this awesome interactive Unified Champion Schools exhibit that was professionally done by a engineering firm. I know Danielle and Jamie and I were able to see it when we were at a conference in San Diego, but it's something that they took to South by Southwest, and it's called Unlocking Inclusion. And so it's an interactive exhibit people can walk through. It's kind of built into lockers and has videos and some really cool graphics and things that people can kind of see the impact that Unified Champion Schools has. Well, they reached out to us and said, with this big building you have, would you be interested in housing it there? And so we're excited that that's something that we're going to be able to, we're working with them on the details, but it sounds like we're getting close to kind of finalizing how that's going to all work. And hopefully we'll be able to bring that in. And that's something that schools, community members can come in and see all the great work that you all are doing. And so it's going to be a place for competition. That's where the question came from. from Ann yesterday was, do you think there'll be opportunities for schools to utilize it? Absolutely. That's a big part of what we're trying to do. So could be some local competitions or regional competitions. Could be some UCS competitions where, we say, hey, we're going to have a middle school tournament on a Thursday or Friday. Let's bring schools in during the school day and they can play. And, with some of the interactive stuff that we're going to do, we're hoping that field trips from UCS schools, but also schools that aren't Unified Champion schools, can go through and see the history of Special Olympics and see the Unlocking Inclusion exhibit, as well as we've talked about conferences. Whether it's some of our conferences that we host with I know many of you have been to the schools conference or the education conference. We're going to have a facility there where we can host training schools. And, when we go back to in person, we can have these conversations that we're having throughout the 4 days this week in person. And then we're also excited because, things like youth summits where students can come together and kind of rally behind the unified movement and really promote inclusion throughout their school. We'll be able to have some youth summits there. You heard Danielle yesterday talk about the Unified Art Show. Is this a place where we can host the art show for no cost and be able to, have people come in and have students display their art that they've created and those type of things. So very excited about it. Again, it's a great opportunity. It's something that we're very excited in the midst of fundraising for, so we can really turn it into Special Olympics Michigan's, get some graphics on the wall and get our sign out front and that sort of thing. So I know one of the first changes we made once we got in there is the bleachers, they were blue and white and they said SCHS. Well, one of our staff members took, when we first went into working from home, he came into the office and rallied some volunteers and they changed it into SOMI on the bleachers. So that was kind of our first taste of making it home, so to speak. So very cool opportunity, something that we're excited about. And so when we purchased this, what we did is we also partnered over on the southeast side of the state with the Say Play Center, which is in Detroit. It was an initiative that was led by the author Mitch Albom, who's a Detroiter. And so he worked with professional organizations and professional athletes to build a rec center in downtown Detroit that has a field turf football field, and it's got gymnasium, and it's got some classrooms and I think he even has a music studio, if I remember correctly. And so we worked with them to form a partnership. And so they've really kind of given us some reign of that building as well. It's designed, what they do with it is they have after school programs that they lead from Monday through Friday. Outside of the after school programs, they're not, their building's not full typically. So what we've done is, during school days, we can bring in some of our school groups. We also have some weekend activities that we can do. We've had a few tournaments there. We were going to plan a big bocce day that was going to take place on one of the weekends, but that got cut short. It was supposed to be in the spring. But another opportunity over in Southeast. And so we're able to kind of service those communities. I know we have some schools that are on the east side of the state. We have an opportunity there where we can host, some school day tournaments and that kind of thing. So some good things that are happening that are going to be tied in and hopefully you all can partake in. One of the examples of the Say Detroit Center, we were partnering with Wayne State University, and because their rec facility is kind of smaller and they had it programmed already for intramurals, we couldn't get time to bring their students and our Special Olympics athletes together. We wanted to do a unified sports league. And so we contacted Say Detroit and they said, yeah, we're wide open on Sundays whenever you want to do it. And so we did a 6-week unified basketball league where we brought in Wayne State students and some of our athletes that are in high school or have graduated or are part of Drew Transition Center. And they had about 50 people that came out every Sunday and played basketball together. So we're excited to see that partnership grow and what we can do to continue to host events there and provide. So yeah, Melissa, great point. Whether we're talking fitness, athletics, I think Heather, who I think is on this morning, but you heard from yesterday, I think she's already carved out a yoga studio and a fitness room in some of the former rooms that we have there. So
absolutely.
She's got big plans for when we're done fundraising, which is good. I mean, we've talked about making it interactive and what kind of stuff that we can do that you've never seen before. So very exciting. So, are there anything else? I mean, you're the one that kind of has been there more than me. Anything else to mention about the building?
Potentially some esports too, if we start that up and going. So might have a studio for that. No, you covered most of it, but we are looking at a fitness, nutrition, wellness. We've actually been in discussions for potentially having a few different studios and having a camp, much like Camp Shriver, that could be something in the future. So lots to come.
Yeah. And Danielle was looking at doing a day camp this summer there for basketball and getting, maybe the Grand Rapids Drive involved. So opportunities are rolling out already. We just kind of paused everything like everyone else. So, but overall, great stuff. So, Jamie, I forgot to ask again, are we recording already?
We are recording. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Timeline. That's a good question. Well, I guess for as far as timeline goes, right now the building is functional. So, we've had some groups in there, like Far Out Volleyball is a local community org that's been renting it. We did have a LETR conference there. So the timeline for us to finish it, I don't know if that's been delayed or not. I know initially it was probably a year to a year and a half out to really kind of making some progress. I know a conversation that I had with Tim, who you met, our CEO, is, we can kind of start to phase things in, I think we've hit about 30% of our fundraising goal, maybe right around 30%. So we're well on our way. It's just a matter of how things might change as, yeah, that's a great idea. Lock-ins. I loved lock-ins back in high school. That'd be a blast. So yeah, if you do have ideas, feel free to share them, because I know I talked to some of our schools when we were kind of doing the planning and we put together some ideas, but by all means, if there's ideas out there, we'd love to hear them. And then when we're fully functional and ready, we can bring in students and implement some of that. So that kind of leads us, I talked a little bit about youth summits and what that might look like. What's awesome, and we've had some youth rallies and youth summits if you've come to our state summer games that our statewide YAC had led, which is really cool because students put them together, they create them, instead of myself and Jamie and Danielle trying to figure out how we can pump up students, we let the students do it. And what comes out of those is some really great ideas. So I think Natalie mentioned yesterday, Leadership Launch. Leadership Launch is a kind of our high-level youth summit that we do each fall, typically. And what we do is we usually host it in mid to late October. So you get the opportunity to get into school, get organized, identify who your YAC's going to be, and then you get the opportunity to come to our inclusive youth leadership training. And so what's great about the Leadership Launch is this young lady on the right of the photo, Kim Sampson. She was a student at Central Michigan University. She had been involved in our, at the time, Project Unify, now Unified Champion Schools. She had been involved in a leadership training or two with our students. And she said, you know what? I love what we're doing. She's like, but a lot of the students aren't identifying themselves as leaders. Maybe they don't see themselves as a leader. So when they go into school and they're trying to get other students on board, or maybe they're going and speaking to educators and administrators, or, they're really trying to create inclusion in their buildings, the first thing we need to do is help them realize that they have the ability to lead. All students do. And so Kim went to the 2015 World Games, which were out in LA. And she was a member of CMU's Leadership Institute. So it's a bunch of scholarship students who have a cohort and go through a curriculum of focused around leadership. But they created the leadership launch. She put together a plan. It was her and 138 students from around the country, or from around the world, excuse me, and they were able to put a plan together, develop the leadership launch. And so she came back from the 2015 World Games and created the curriculum and recruited the students from the Leadership Institute, and just really trained all the students as well. And so what was great is the CMU students, it's now going on year 6, would have been this year. Will be this year, I should say. For year 6, we've had over 1,000 students go through this that are Unified Champion School students. And the CMU students train each other. Each year there's 2 or 3 student leaders that I work with pretty closely. And they create the training. They go over how to be inclusive, how to use person-first language, how to involve all students. They even do a disability awareness training, and then they train on the leadership activities that they're doing. And so what's great about it is the first year we had struggled to get 20 students involved. Now, every year we usually have about 40 or 50 that come. They've even had some alums that say they want to come back and help. So it's completely organized, planned, run by those CMU students. I think Natalie might have mentioned it yesterday, but it's for our staff, it's our favorite event of the year because we get to come in, help with registration, and then just hang out with our educators and kind of relax and talk plans. And, the students go off with the CMU students. Educators are more than welcome to go in and kind of observe, but we really want it to be student-led and student participation. So, and their goal is to identify as leaders, set goals for their school, talk about how they want to include others and what they want to do when they go back to school for the year, and kind of set those plans. And then some of our schools have even taken the activities that they've done at the leadership launch and done them with other school groups, and done that, to kind of show what it means to include, and kind of even do some leadership training with other students. So as of right now, we're postponing it. I know Kayla Kuczynski, who actually was a YAC member when she was at Dakota High School in Utica. She actually helped get Unified Champion School started at her school. She is our student leader this year. And she called me the one, I think in May, and said, please tell me it's not canceled. So I said, why don't we look at postponing it? What we may do, and we've kind of started to put some plans together, Kayla and I, of how we could do this from a virtual standpoint, even if it means we do some activation in the fall that would be virtual. Maybe we connect with some of our dedicated CMU students, and they connect with your YAC and kind of do some idea sharing and some virtual training. And then if all goes right and we can host something in the spring or winter, we're gonna shoot for that. So this is one of the years that we try to do every other year at CMU, just because it's easier for the students, the CMU students, to be home and not have to travel with a whole group of students, that type of thing. Obviously, we know with college campuses, each one's different, but bringing outside groups onto campus might be a little bit more difficult. So the good news is we have this wonderful new school down in Grand Rapids that maybe we can host it there. So that's our plan for right now. I know a lot of you have either attended that in one of our previous years, or many of you even come each year. But it's really great because their students take it very seriously. We have a wealth now, 5 years worth of curriculum that we've created, that each year we kind of create some new stuff. Now we have the ability to kind of recycle some of it and make it better. So that those curriculum pieces and those activities that the students lead, we're going to make that available to our educators. But it's I think the virtual piece is something that we're going to maybe be able to pull off, and we're going to have start with a virtual component. So early in the year, they can kind of set their plans. And then as we get into the spring and winter, we can hopefully have people in person. So just wanted to provide that update. It's a great opportunity. It is typically, we started off hosting it for high school students and have since kind of opened that up to high school and upper middle school, just because if we have too wide of a range of ages, the curriculum's a little bit more difficult to put on for, if we were to have elementary, middle, and high school, or some of our lower middle school students. So it is designed for high school and upper middle school, but that's the update on the launch. If you have questions, let me know. And another pop quiz. So Heather, who's on, you heard her talk about the new fitness initiatives and some of the returning fitness initiatives. What are first person to list one of the fitness initiatives that fulfills your unified sports component? Feel free. And if you respond correctly with some of those, Heather will sign you up as doing those fitness initiatives. So, or she'll at least be reaching out.
Absolutely.
We'll give you a second to get those in. Thinking about fitness initiatives. How are we doing? Oh, early. Cool. So we're a little bit early. Just gonna make sure I didn't miss any questions. Yes, I just want to comment, Meredith from Lansing Public Schools said she can't believe that the LA World Games were 5 whole years ago. She brought a team of cheerleaders, unified cheerleaders out to World Games in LA, and they got to cheer all week long at the game. So it is hard to believe that was 5 whole years ago, but what an experience it was. All right. So, Danielle, is Joan on?
Joan is not on.
Okay.
Thanks. I can text her because I know she's up.
All right.
Um,
We're a little bit early, so.
we could also go to one of our questions right now that fits in.
Yeah, let's do that.
I lost it, but oh, where did it go? So we were wondering, we just talked about leadership launch and kind of some of the things we do to empower your youth to be leaders, but are there any lessons or activities that you've done in your own school to empower your students to be leaders or to build those leadership skills? You can chime in or put it in the chat, either way. Or you can all be very quiet today, whichever you prefer.
I can chime in for a minute. So with this is Natalie Queen from Waverly High School. So with my unified class, we have a lot of students that are involved in that, and we have peer-to-peer as well. So I reached out to both groups, and I noticed at lunchtime we have some kids who always sit at the same table. They always sit in the same group with the parapros. So I had asked the students in both classes and organizations, like, hey, would you be willing, once a month or twice a month to sit with the kids at the table, or try to get them to venture out at a new table? And so we just had like a sign up genius where kids volunteered their time, and they went, instead of going out for lunch. Some kids had that ability. They just either, they stayed in, and we tried to do like lunch buddies. And so once I was done with the first 2 months, I didn't put it up again. And then the kids initiated that themselves and made sure that somebody was there for lunch. A couple kids were. So it was pretty cool.
Very cool. I know Jill mentioned about Jeter's Leaders. Do you want to share about that, Jill?
I sure can. So Derek Jeter, we happen to be lucky. He attended my school, and Derek Jeter, of course, is a famous baseball player, retired now, but extremely generous in our community. Our school, he's put up new baseball things and bought stuff for the kids and done things for little leagues. And he has a program that he developed called Jeter's Leaders. And these are kids that are from middle school to high schoolers that go through his program to be leaders. And they have to, part of their leadership skills is to volunteer for programs all throughout Kalamazoo. And so when I started doing Unified, one of the kids came to me and said, I'm a Jeter's Leader, and this would be a perfect program for us. And I said, yes, it would. So they're terrific. The kids come in, they have incredible leadership skills already. They do things, some of the kids do it from the time they're in the 8th grade all the way through high school. Jeter's takes their leaders all over doing things like going to other colleges, seeing universities, doing programming all over for things in the United States. So our kids come naturally. They love coming to us. The first group happened to have a sister of one of my students, and that kind of got it going. And so that was exciting. And so now they're automatically, my yak, and I don't really have to have a lot of stuff with them because they just do it. They're just natural leaders. And so now what we're trying to do is get more of the kids to participate with us other than the Jeter Leaders kids. But the Jeter Leaders kids are our leaders in our school too. So it turns out to be really, really well done. And the kids love it. And I mean, we've come to all the games and it just turns out great. I'm fortunate, very lucky.
No, that's awesome.
And the other thing is they've been generous, and Derek Jeter, every year that we have a Christmas party, like you guys probably do too, for the kids. And every year he sends our kids a big backpack full of treats, like a cool backpack, that's basketball and all that. It's really nice. And he helped give us more money for uniforms, our original ones. And he's just really thoughtful and generous with the kids. So it's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great connection.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
Mikkel mentioned being at a center-based program. I don't know if you'd like to share about how that connection works. We've talked about that a little bit in the happy hours from 3 to 4 of connecting with groups from an ISD with Gen Ed students. Would you like to share on that at all?
It's a little bit because I have middle school, post-secondary, and high school students that I work with. I'm in charge of UCS for the Macomb Intermediate School District. From middle school on through. The greatest thing that we have that I really enjoy is working with the students at Flynn, because we take our information that we're going to do, mostly we do bocce and we do basketball, and the students help create all the visuals and all the materials. They help set up what they want to talk about when we go to do peer-to-peer conversations, and we call them meet and greets because our students don't always get to spend time with the Gen Ed population, being that it's center based. So they get really excited, and they come up with different ideas that they want. They call it their minute talks. So we go to the schools, the students, our partners, we all meet in the sensory room. So the students get to see exactly how our students interact and what makes them tick. Our students, the students that I work with have autism, so the sensory room is a great place for them to be able to see just what it takes to help keep our students focused and really get to know who they are, because they can use all the different materials to help our students to communicate. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Been doing it for 2 years now, and it works really well.
That's perfect. Thank you. Melissa, do you want to share about the student groups that you work with? I know you mentioned student council, Key Club's one that we're hearing more and more of groups getting involved with. Do you want to share about that?
Well, we've just done a lot of for our school-wide, or I guess community-wide engagement in terms of participating in Davison has a community parade, and we also have twice a year we have community parades, and we also have our homecoming parade that goes through our town. So using some of the unified swag that we get, the bracelets and things like that, we have partnered with those organizations who typically don't have a lot to use to hand out, but then they've participated in parades with us, so that we're kind of doing a community service organization blast to the community. This is the first year that we had a peer-to-peer links program in our high school as an elective course. So we worked very closely with that group of students, because a lot of the kids in Unified in my club also participate in the peer-to-peer program as buddies. So we went bowling. We used our bowling funds to help support bowling, and then the peer-to-peer program came. And so just doing those types of things, like linking out and saying, hey, I've got some swag and some ability to, get snacks for us all to come together, and then talk about what the different clubs do, and then joining from a community service level within the school. And so that's been super successful, because what I find is that we've got a lot of really super motivated gen ed kids who are looking for community service opportunities, who are interested in getting to know the population, and that really helps from a cred standpoint in the high school, if you will, because then we're getting a lot more students who know about our program, who are then saying hello to our kids in the hallways, and that's also helped us branch into linking with our varsity bowling team, our varsity volleyball team, our varsity basketball team. Our AD has now sort of gotten involved, and we're working more toward getting to develop some teams and that sort of, to move forward with the sports piece. So that's been helpful on my end, because it's allowing more kids and more exposure for our club. So it's not just the club that the social worker is running on Wednesday mornings for the special ed kids who get there early. So that's been really helpful to, I guess, from the PR standpoint.
Awesome. And I'll say this right now, I promise I didn't plant the next few comments in here, because they go right along with what we're talking about today. Melissa mentioned the homecoming parade, right? One of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later is thinking about school events you already have that have high exposure that you can bring Unified into to spread the word through your campus. That's a perfect example of that. And you can kind of see how it radiates to athletics is getting involved and that sort of thing. So Leslie, I don't know if you want to share as well about peer-to-peer, but I know we've talked real briefly about the peer-to-peer links group and how that's been a really strong connection for us, and would love to hear how you brought those students into the fold.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate. I did not actually teach the Unified PE class this year, but I did work a lot with Kim Sclafani, who's our peer-to-peer teacher in Wyandotte. And her, along with the students, they just come up with great, amazing ideas, just one after the other, on clubs that they can do, activities they can do together. They fished. We're right on the Detroit River. So they joined up with a fishing group. I can't remember the name of it, but so just stuff like that. I don't have hands-on input at all, but I do hold on to her shirt tails and take a little bit of credit once in a while. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have Kim Sclafani, who really puts the kids together, and then we put them in a gym together. So she does all the heavy lifting. We just go along for the ride.
No, that's awesome, because it kind of came up at the end of yesterday with getting admin buy-in. And so that's another thing we're going to talk about, is getting other adults, in school involved. And I think that's one of the ways is we've seen, it can be intimidating at first, right? But not thinking that you have to do everything, that you can partner with another gen ed teacher or, athletics, and have them help create some of this. So it's not all falling on you.
Right. Right. Now, unfortunately, I'm the one who brought up that question, because we do get a lot of pushback from our administration. So that is our biggest battle in Wyandotte. We're going to try really hard. And obviously this year is going to be a little bit different, but we are not giving up. We have enough other people to support us that we feel like with a little bit of outside pressure, maybe they can come along and we smother them with kindness and gratitude. So we're working on that. That's definitely our challenge in Wyandotte is our admin.
Great. Yeah, let us know how we can help.
Thanks.
I think Catherine mentioned she had a student leader that helped out, didn't want to play basketball, but helped out. Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, I have a student who is on my YAC committee, and she's been with me. We're a K7 building. Well, we were K6, then we're K7. Now this year we're K8. But anyhow, she started in our YAC as a 3rd grader. And this year when it came time to do basketball, you know, I tried to get her in and said, you need to recruit kids because I needed general ed kids and I didn't have the connections. And she's like, I really don't want to play basketball. I said, okay, well, you can skip this one. You don't have to do it. And she's the one that came up with, hey, can I be the manager? And she actually went to practices. I couldn't go to practices because we have another coach that comes in. She helped with attendance. She helped with drills. You know, when we went to the games at Michigan State, she was awesome because I was just like, here's the clipboard, Gianna, go ahead. And I sat and watched. And I never would have put her in that position because she's a fairly quiet kid. But she was fabulous at it. So, I mean, she felt like she could speak up and say, hey, I want to do this.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've, like I said, we're going to talk about getting other students involved in some of those student groups and, you know, how they can help support. You know, it's not like you all have to coach and plan and do everything. We can get support from other students or adults and that type of thing. So awesome. Perfect. I think we had one other, and then we're going to ask another question. Ashley, do you want to share about your Links program and kind of how that all came about and what you do with that group?
I break up because my Wi-Fi is not the greatest. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So our Links program, and I'm a first year at Hazlitt. I did 4 years at Durant. But anyways, our Links program was very small prior to this past school year, and we got the students really involved with lunch and recess and passing time and other activities like pep assemblies and whatnot. And then during the basketball season, the students wanted to get to know our athletes better and learn their routines. And so they just kind of figured out how they could help them get ready for practice, and then they learned who their parents were so they could help with departure as well. So that way we weren't scrambling around with 30 plus kids and trying to get them to the right parent. The 8th graders did an amazing job with learning who goes to what vehicle and whatnot, and they were able to help out, make sure.
Lost her. Okay. So I don't know if everyone saw in the chat, some of that kind of cut out, but they basically had students kind of work closely. Some of their peer groups work closely with their students to kind of get to know them and then work with them on the basketball court. So I'm going to hand it over to Danielle. We've heard a lot about student leadership, but kind of put a twist to that. So another question from Danielle.
Okay, so a lot of what we were hearing there was about partner leadership opportunities. What successes have you had with building leadership skills within your athlete?
Hello?
You will, oh, go ahead, Linda.
I'm sorry. I think with this pandemic, it was really nice to see the kids get on virtually. And when I had my weekly meetings with the athletes and the partners, they often were the ones starting the games and coming up with ideas of what we could do. And I found that really empowering. Like, they're like, well, let's all find something brown in the house. So they'd run around and find something brown. And, they were always the first ones on Thursdays when we met, which is really cool. And in terms of, they also were in our video for anti-bullying. They acted in it, and it was just really cool to see. So they are doing a lot of cool things.
Great.
And do you want to tell us more about what that fair entails, who those students were talking to?
Yeah, we had a elective fair this past year during like a lunchtime where all the different teachers that taught electives would set up tables. And so we had one for Unified PE since that was a fairly new class. And so I asked some of our athletes to come sit with us during that time. And part of their job was explaining to the students that would come up to the table and ask questions. They didn't just sit there. They had to explain what was going on in the class and what was special about it and why other people should sign up for it. And we have some that also, we do chapel 3 times a week at our school and get up in front of the whole student body. And we have a few that love to participate in that. We have one especially that does a lot of interpretive dances and such. So it's just great to see him want to be a leader and show that you can take those risks and get up in front of a few hundred people and show different gifts and abilities that you have. So we have a few really good athlete leaders.
Very cool. Any other examples of athlete leadership or ways that they've stepped up to kind of help grow your program? I know that's one of the pieces that we're always trying to strengthen. I think sometimes even if it's athletes and partners kind of working together to share, and to kind of lead together, a lot of times that can be powerful. You can also work that into some of your practices. If you've got, I think Catherine mentioned she had a student leader kind of step up and help kind of take the behind the scenes piece of coaching. Sometimes empowering your athletes to, lead the team in stretches or, some of those practice plans, that kind of thing, they can have an impact there as well. I know Victoria has a comment here about one of our athletes and kind of building the self-esteem of the team and kind of helping out others. Victoria, do you want to share about that at all and kind of tell us about that student?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah, he's been involved in Special Olympics for a few years, and I forget if he was in 7th or 8th grade this year, but it was really cool to see, like, when they'd be at basketball practice, unified practice, to see how if somebody else starts, like, mouthing off or something, he'll just try to keep them in check and say, knock it off, or, hey, we're all trying here, something like that. And especially to see that from an athlete was really inspiring and unitive, I think. And he also was very inclusive, like always trying to find new friends to come and join in I teach adapted PE. So either join in like a adapted PE class or the practices. And as teachers, we see that. And I teach there about once a week with him. But the special ed teacher that he has, she would comment to me a lot about how I can really trust him, and I know he can like deliver messages to other teachers around the school for me, about like events, or we need this kid to come and join for practice for this sport. And it's just really nice to see like how he understands that he has that responsibility, and that we see that in him and that he's living up to that. I think that's really just amazing to see how he's grown.
Awesome. I know that was I know one of our schools, they did sort of a like weekly captains for their team. And so each week they, switched it, and then they would, either lead, they kind of based it off of, who's being positive and sportsmanship and that sort of thing, from week to week. And then they would kind of have their weekly captains each week lead the team in stretches and that kind of thing. So that's a perfect segue there. Looks like we had some other stuff kind of come in. I know Penny down at Bay City Central did some Zoom meetings after the pandemic happened, and would just kind of have a check-in with everyone and host those, and then students would get on and talk about what's going on and that sort of thing. So an easy way virtually to sort of check in and see how things were going with students. So yeah, I was going to say, Danielle answered Jen's question. She had a really good question about unified PE, since we've talked about it quite a bit. Does the teacher have to have a special education certification? That would be something that you'd want to check with your school, your district. We don't necessarily requirement, but I think it would just be based on your school and what their position is on that. But I know we've had some that I believe don't have a special ed certification who have taught that in the past. So. Well, this was good feedback. I know this is what we wanted to do today because we've had such good idea sharing, is we kind of pivoted a little. And so we're going to ask a couple other questions throughout the day about getting students involved and other staff members, that sort of thing, tied to getting, kind of spreading the word throughout school. So think about some of those examples. We're going to move over now to our.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
With that PE question for regular ed, I think it's really good that you talk to your administration about that. But then I also highly suggest, and if you're new to this, I don't want people to think like it's just the regular ed teacher in there. When we do unified PE, we have it like as a team taught hour. So we have the regular ed PE teacher in there. We have a special ed teacher in there. And then we also have some paras in there. So it's not just like unified happens with the regular ed PE teacher and then that's it. You should have a support system in there because sometimes days are great and sometimes they're chaotic and it's a circus. So having your support system in there is very important.
Great.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Natalie. So we are going to kick it over to our school examples. And we have a couple speakers on. We're going to have one of our statewide YAC members who's joined us. She's a student at Swartz Creek High School, Maddie Warden. Joan Robertson from Grand Blancs going to join us and talk about, they did a disability awareness fair. And then we're going to have Ann Pulowski from Holland Christian share about some whole school initiatives that they did and kind of tied in together as well. So I think we're going to start with Maddie. Danielle, do you want to go ahead and introduce Maddie?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce her slowly because I just found out that she has to let her dog out real quick.
Okay.
So Maddie is one of our state YAC students, as Dan said. She's from Swartz Creek High School. This year was going to be her first full year on our YAC. I guess it still was, but got short because of COVID. Maddie will be speaking to you today about some whole school awareness virtual activities that you may be able to do. And I know that a lot of schools have guidelines regarding how many people can be in assemblies or join together at one time. So looking at some virtual ideas straight from our youth. I don't think she's back yet.
No, I'm here.
Oh, yay, you're here. Okay, well, I'm biased, but this is going to be one of my favorite presentations of the day. So Maddie, go ahead.
So I've come up with a few ideas for us to do unified virtually. So one of my ideas that I had was do a lot of presentations, but make them interactive so that students will stay engaged with them. Like I've been in classes where it's kind of just been boring, like it'll drag on, but I want these presentations to be more interactive. So I said, you can take dance breaks. So like you can put on a Just Dance video and kids can get up and kind of get their wiggles out. Take time to answer questions, like take like 5 minutes for every 20 that you're on. answer some questions that students have and then get back at it. I said split off into smaller groups. Like if you're school-wide, you can split off into smaller groups of students, have them discuss their ideas. If they're like wondering anything that they don't want to ask to a teacher or the person that's like running the presentation. I said presentations can be like on a Friday, because Fridays are usually fun days. They could be about different learning disabilities, different organizations that do things with Special Olympics, and more stuff like that. The second idea I had was high schoolers or like older middle schoolers, so like 7th and 8th graders, they could like send a video or go on Zoom and read a book about kindness or love to little kindergartners, because I think that they would enjoy that. The next idea I had was Kindness Week. So it's basically a week during school where you have a theme for every day, and it's something to do with like being together and being kind. So I found this one just on Pinterest, and so Monday would be kind, and you'd wear yellow and black, like dress up as a bee. Tuesday, it's cool to be kind, you all wear sunglasses. Wednesday is cuddle up and be kind, so you all wear your PJs to school. Thursday is kindness is the perfect ingredient, so you wear cat t-shirt or dress up as a cat. And then Friday would be a good sport, so you wear your sports attire. The next idea I had was for everybody that shows up to the meeting, you could have a raffle. So you could like give out a gift card to anything they want, or like give out candy. I don't know how you'd send the candy to them, but it's just kind of a thought. I also said prizes for people who are like the best dressed during the meeting. So like they could wear their Kindness Week meeting or their Kindness Week attire to the meeting. Then whoever's dressed best, give them a prize. And then the last idea I had was a rock painting day. So everybody would collect a rock and paint it, obviously. And it had like you could write on it something to do with kindness or love. And then I thought that possibly you could set them outside the school in a specific area so everybody can see them, or even like just a long shot, you could set them outside of a hospital in support of nurses and healthcare workers during this time. And those are the ideas that I had.
Maddie, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
But I think you were in the unified group a couple years ago where you all split up into separate groups and did classroom presentations on the R word.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that one?
Slightly, yes.
Would you be able to kind of talk about the leadership aspect of that and how you guys worked independently to create those different presentations and what those presentations were like? Because I know those were very impactful for the student body, and those are things that could be done virtually.
Are you talking about when we did the presentations like whole school wide?
The year after that, when you guys separated into 3 groups and went into science classrooms for a couple days?
Oh, okay. So basically what we did was we were split off into groups, general ed and special ed, and we had to make a presentation about the R word and how it impacted students and their friends. And we went into all the science classrooms. Like obviously we separated from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but we all went into different classrooms and talked about it. And I feel like having the smaller group was so much more impactful than having the large assembly group, because you could get your voice out more. People were listening. There was one teacher in there that could get all the kids' attention, and your voice was heard when you did that. You could get it out and people would listen to you instead of being at an assembly where all the kids were sitting by their friends and goofing off.
Do you remember some of the tough questions that you guys were asked? Because I know the classes got pretty vulnerable with you guys too.
Not really. I remember, I think one of them was like, what does the R word mean to you? Or like, what is the R word? Like just kind of like general questions, but like once you got the kids to answer the questions, then the ball would start rolling.
Great. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I think I'll talk more about that presentation a little bit later, but does anyone have any questions for Maddie?
Danielle, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but since you put Maddie on the spot, I'm going to put you on the spot. And Maddie, chime in. the parents' night that you all did that was kind of in conjunction with that?
Maddie, was that your year too, when we had parents come out in the evening and we did the presentation? Well, you guys did all the presentations and awards and stuff.
Yeah, that was my year.
Aha, shifting this on the spot thing back to Maddie. Can you tell them about that?
So at semester, there was a few of us that were leaving our unified class, going to a different class, having to take a core class that we needed. So what we did was we had our parents, siblings, anybody that we invited, we had them come out to the cafeteria at Swartz Creek Middle School, and we showed them the presentation that we made. We had parents ask questions, we answered them, and then we had all of our general ed students lined up and gave awards to our special ed students.
Mm-hmm. And that night, we've heard from parents at conferences and different things. Well, let me back up. I used to be one of the UCS liaisons at Swartz Creek Middle School, so this is me talking as school staff, not as SOMI staff. But we've heard from parents at conferences and different times throughout the year that they knew their gen ed student was involved in Unified, and they knew that their student was acting better at home and excited about what this thing was, but they didn't fully understand what the program entailed and what their child was doing while they were involved. So when they came out to this parents' night, the kids truly educated them on what Unified is, on what the R word is, why they're fighting for inclusion. And it actually brought quite a few of the parents to tears, which was kind of surprising, but super amazing just to see, one, for us, that these kids are able to spread the word now to other generations, but also just how happy the parents were to hear about it, and the growth that they were seeing in their children was truly appreciated. And the entire thing was student led. We sat back as adults and watched them plan it, and showed up that night and stood and leaned against a wall. Dan came out to see it, and he leaned against the wall with us while we watched the students do the whole thing.
Held that wall up. But what was cool about it is the students are presenting, and they did the presentation that they did in those classes. And in their presentation, they say, how many of you have used the R word? And so they asked this at parents' night, right? And so these parents are kind of like, and I think that was one of the most powerful things I've seen. But it was really cool to see the students take that, lead it, and do the exact same presentation and not hold back. It was awesome. So kudos to Maddie, and you can see she's still making those changes. That's awesome.
She's a winner. They asked those same kind of questions when they pushed into the science rooms, but these are classes of 25 to 30 students, and these are their friends. And our athletes and partners walk in and would say, how many of you use the R word? They would, look around like the parents did, raise their hand. But then our athletes were standing right there to say, when you use that, this is how I feel as that a person that you're associating that word with. Our partners were there to say, this is my friend you're talking about. I love my friend. You're insulting both of us. So they were very meaningful conversations, and they're very direct in ways that we as liaisons don't necessarily go towards. So Maddie's group was amazing. 2 of the other students from that group or 3 of them are also on the YAC now, because they are truly game changers and good ones to go to with any of your leadership questions. Maddie will be on tomorrow as well to talk a little bit more about these ideas, as well as just virtual meetings in general and kind of some ideas you can do with those. Maddie, I hope you saw there's lots of compliments for you in the group chat. I don't know if you can see that over there.
Yeah, I saw them. Thank you, everybody.
All right. If there are no questions for Maddie, you can go ahead and get ready for Mom's birthday. I will talk to you later.
All righty. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie.
Now we're going to shift over to Joan. Joan is from Grambling High School, where her Unified students do amazing disability awareness activities. So she's going to tell us a bit about that.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Oh, I wanted to show off our tie-dye, Live Unified. We bought the white shirts in for our art class, and then they tie-dyed them. So that's a nice way to get around that more expensive way to do it. And it's an actual comfortable cotton shirt. So, okay, so I did want to just share.
Hey, Joan. Can anybody else hear her voice?
Box checked.
There we go.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Can you guys see my screen?
We can, Joan. You're good now.
Excellent. Okay, so believe it or not, our inclusion week was on March 4th, the week before we all shut down. And we had 700 general ed kids come through it throughout the entire week. Wednesday was our big day, the 4th, but we did do practice runs Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday was the big day, and then we had a couple things Thursday and a party on Friday. So let me see, I'm gonna exit that real quick. Here's the link to what we did. And now in years past, we have just done a week of setting up a table, lunch hours, that kind of thing. Some great stuff. This had the most impact, I think, for sure, over the entire week that we did it. And the opportunities for leadership, oh my gosh, were just fantastic. Here is the packet we use. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes, good. Disability awareness activity packet. I don't remember. Does anybody else on leadership management remember this packet? I got it years ago. And I just kind of kept it, you know, just to see if there's any time that I would be able to present it. And I handed this out to this crew in our unified art gym class, and they ran with it. They loved it. They loved it. So here's all the, basically the impairments, hearing impairments, cognitive delay, communication disorder, autism. And we did these activities for an entire day along with some other ones. All you have to do is really seriously go on and put disability awareness packet, and it'll come right up in Google. I do have the link, and I can share it with you on the chat, but it's not, you just go on, it's the second one. I never even saved it because I could access it so quickly just on Google.
So we took this as a starter. And then what we did was we added our own. And I'm going to go to my emails now. I didn't have time to download a lot of pictures. The kids really ran this show. Here's the big picture. Can you guys see that one? I am, but I am not. That was something that we found online. I am shy, but I am not stuck up. Or I am an athlete, but I'm not full of myself. I am hearing impaired, but I am not stupid. I am female, but I am not, whatever. I think they put, I am female, but I am not demure. I think that there were some other things. The kids came up with all different kinds, and they signed it. And so this was our unified gym class. That was one of them that we did. Let's see, here's the other one. Oh, and here's the one that I sent out to the staff. I sent this out to our staff and basically just kind of outlined what we were going to do and how we were going to have the kids come in. We did had to
I think we lost Joan.
just the elective classes to include. And there was a reason for that because of our schedule at our building. but 700 kids is pretty darn good. So the kids would come down at the classes, and the first thing they would go to is our word station, and where it was a social media station, so they could get pictures with lots of different slogans that we had going. Live unified, be unified, choose to include, all those kind of things. Great shots. And all the kids were
encouraged to get out their phones, which is not something you see at a high school all the time during a class time, and take pictures and send them out and get it out on there. And we chose to do that on the Wednesday big time because that was the National Inclusion Day on the 4th of March. Then after that, there were 2 other places they could go. There was a leadership building kind of thing and a team building kind of activity where they had to set up hula hoops in groups of 6. And I had some of my athletes teaching the kids how to do it, the regular ed kids. And that was huge. That was great. And the partners would just kind of stay back and say, well, why don't you help that? We had our nonverbal athletes with a partner standing by the door to greet everybody with a script. Everybody had a script, just so you know. And we practiced this for 2 weeks before we did it. About 15 minutes at the beginning of our unified class, which again, so grateful we have that class, our unified gym class. We would go over the script with everybody. And it was mostly for the athletes, but some of those partners needed it as well. And then after they went to those 2, we did have a table that was just all about our unified classes with applications, and they could answer questions, and a little remote control car that everybody could take turns. Of course, you know, can't do that now. I'm sure this whole thing we couldn't do now. And then once they got to the gym, there were 5 stations, and then they went to each station, and you had an athlete and a partner there to talk about each disability. And it was powerful stuff. And they got really good at, okay, the first couple times the kids were really nervous because these are their peers, especially the partners. These are their peers coming up. By the last day that we did it, they were like, come on over here, guys. They were calling their friends over. Our athletes had an opportunity to speak in front of their peers, and we had some, of course, staff coming down too. We had some administrators. We had everybody. It was a fabulous day, exhausting week. We're thinking about doing it once a month and then like saying, okay, this month is English. The next month is going to be social studies. So we can touch, we have 2,800 kids in our building. So it was a huge thought that we were going to touch them all. We knew we were not going to. But now that we have our unified sports class 4th hour, which is lunch, you know, once we're back, which is the lunch hour, we thought that maybe this would be possible for us to maybe get it out there a little bit more. And we did have kids in elective classes that came 2 and 3 times and didn't opt to go to the library. They came down. They came down with their friends. Oh, you got to go to this one. You got to go. Oh, this was really cool. So it was a highlight of my career, I think, to do that whole week. And we will be
You cut out.
Oh, I think she can hear you.
I think we may be able to hear you now.
Oh.
The last 2 sentences, I think we all missed.
Okay. I could see doing the rock activity for Maddie. I could see using that activity. There are so many activities you could do. And we were trying to keep it to about 40 minutes, which was hard, but you know, some kids just went on to we asked teachers to have them bring all their stuff. But if you want more information, I'd be happy to sit down with you and show you what we did and show you the schedule we had. It's a huge undertaking, but now that I have my 3rd hour and I'm team teaching with my unified sports teacher, and I have 6th hour for my planning with my unified art teacher, I had so much more time this year to spearhead it and get it done. It was great. So, any questions?
I just want to add to that, you know, Joan, you said a couple times that it was a really big undertaking, but you and your team did a great job with that. I was able to go through these different stations and approaching the students at the tables, they had directions right on the table for you to read. And I've went to other events, not unified, where people just expect you to read them and do whatever it says. But the students would show me the directions, talk me through them, help me with the activity. And then while we were doing the activity, they were able to relate it to real life or try to add in an extra component of empathy to it. So they really knew not only what the directions were for the activity they were presenting, but a solid understanding of the meaning and importance of that activity. They were great. I loved it.
Yeah, it was one of the best things, and what a leadership opportunity for our athletes and our partners. You really saw a lot of them shine in ways that we'd never seen them shine before. So that was great. It was great. We were exhausted, but it was great.
All right. Any other questions for Joan? Joan, I do see in the comments that Sarah would like to see your schedule.
Okay. Yep. I will go and find that and put it in the chat if I can link it to the chat. They're all in my Google, you know, so.
Okay.
And I'll put it on, when I figure out how to do that Dropbox, I'll put it there.
We can help with that too. If you want to send it over to us, we can put it in the Dropbox for you.
Fabulous. I will do that.
Jamie's the best at it. So when I say us, I mean send it to Jamie.
Got it.
All right. If there aren't any questions for Joan, okay, we will move on to Anne. Is Anne still with us?
Yep, right here.
Ooh, you ready to go?
Yep. Just I gotta quiet down some kids. Just a minute.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good to go. I'm gonna pull up my thing here. Can you guys see that? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the whole school engagement pieces that we did. We're real newbies to this whole unified champion school thing, but we started, this past year was our first kind of whole year of doing it. And the year before, we just kind of jumped in September, not knowing or December, not knowing what we were doing. But if you're thinking about it and you're like, just do it and you'll figure it out. But anyway, these are this past year, some of the whole school engagement activities that we did that were a lot of fun. This is what I did. I did a presentation once before and I talked about, this was our first year. These activities are the things we did the first year. So like that first picture with fans in the stands is something we did. I love that picture. That's one of our students, Sam, and the student body just behind him. It's one of my favorite pics, but that was one of our first games that we ever had. And it was just such a blast. In the middle, we did some different awareness campaigns. We sold the t-shirts. We did the different socks. That's David Mustard, one of our big guys in the district that helps a lot with things. And then that's Charlie doing chapels. He's one of our interpretive dance people. So I was excited about the art show in the spring, Danielle, because I think he could do some of his dances. He loves it. So these are some we did like that first year where we just jumped in. Here's a picture of our unified basketball team that I coached with Melissa. She's on here somewhere. Hey, Melissa. She doesn't know that I have pictures of her doing some things in here, but she'll be surprised. One side note, if you do basketball and you get your uniforms, that was a little overwhelming for me at first because there's so many options. But one thing we loved, and we got this advice from Zealand Public, is that we got the reversible uniforms. And that was the best because I don't ever have to worry about students showing up at a game with the wrong color on. If they do, they just flip it around and parents only have to keep track of one uniform set. So anyway, that's our amazing team that we had this past school year. And this was our professional photo that we had done with all the other teams. One thing I appreciate is that our school looks at our unified teams the same as any other team. So like here, when it was picture day, we all had to show up too and get a professional photo done. So for the yearbook and for the school website and stuff. One thing, our goal this year was, since Unified was so new, I mean, we had some people go to the games, they kind of knew what it was, but how do we reach out to our entire school, including the staff, to help them understand what a unified basketball game looks like? Because you guys know, you don't know what it is until you actually go to one, right? So I came up with this idea with that mustard guy I was talking about, that we could have a surprise game. Like we have chapels that we do 3 times a week, and then after that we have this flex time. And so there was enough time to put a game in there. The key was surprise. I didn't know how they were going to pull off having this be a surprise game. But I can talk about that a little bit. That just made it a lot more fun and more memorable for the student body and teachers and stuff. But we thought before we start our basketball season, we could do this game during the school day and just really have a fantastic time and introduce unified sports to the entire school. So one thing, our partners all knew about it. The teachers all knew about it, but some of our athletes knew, but a lot of them didn't because they can't keep a secret for the life of them, right? So that was a little tricky figuring out how do we do this and not get the word out. All right, so what we did, we had a chapel, and what we do is all the students and staff are in an auditorium. So that first picture is some of our peer links, because we have a peer links program, so they talked about that. Some of them are in our unified PE class, so they talked about that. And then some of them are also on the basketball team, and some of our athletes up there have their uniform on and partners, but those are the athletes that we couldn't tell. So we just told them, oh, you're wearing your uniform for that chapel. They had no idea we had a game coming up. So they talked about what this all meant to them, what inclusion meant, and what unified was and their experience with that. And then Mustard came out on the stage. We played, actually I forgot, we played one of my favorite Special Olympics videos that kind of really showed what we want to do as a school in changing culture. I don't know if you guys had seen that at all. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Dan? About being equal, and it's all students in there. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
The spread the word one, or is it a different one?
I don't know. Do you want me, if I have it up, you want me to play it? It's one of my favorite videos.
Yeah.
If people want to. Let me see if I can find it a minute.
If you can't find it right away, I can, if you find it after, I can play it at the end of the day too.
Sure, that sounds good. We'll just do that. All right. And then once we played that video, Mustard came out on stage and he's like, why are we talking about it? Let's do it. And that was the fun part. And he told everybody, head out to the gymnasium. I think everybody was super surprised because they really didn't have an idea that we had this whole game set up. And I took a couple screenshots. We set it up exactly how we do any basketball game. When we have our unified games, the expectation is they are run the same way as varsity or JV or any of the teams. They're live streamed, videotaped, put on our websites, just like all the other games are. We have announcers and music. I get certified officials to ref the game. So we had it for this one too. We wanted it to be reflective of what a real unified game looks like, but then also to showcase that, hey, we look at this as any other sport in our school. So you can see the student body just was really into it and getting up there doing their chants and all of that during breaks and timeouts and such. So just to kind of get a little feel of what it was like, is it okay if I play a few videos from that? And also, one thing I have to say that I love about Dan and Jamie and Danielle is how supportive you are. So any of you guys, if you're new to this, please connect with them. I can email Jamie and say, we're doing this event. can you send any fun gear? And like for this, she sent a few packs of things that our youth activation committee could throw out to the crowd doing it. There were t-shirts and bracelets and pop sockets, all sorts of fun things. Dan actually came to watch our game. So anytime, let them know. They're so supportive, and at the drop of a hat too. I can forget to ask them about something and they're right there and they send it to you. So I just had to kind of link to some of the YouTube videos. So this is the start introducing our team. There's Sam. They're partners, and it was really fun. We had all sorts of people taking pictures and videotaping it. And some of it too, when we had senior reflections at the end of the school year, some people talked about how this was their best memory of the entire school year. So there's that one. And sorry, I have to figure out how to navigate through some of this. Here we go. That's Elena and Charlie working on their passing. So it was just a lot of fun, and I loved how they treated it just like any other game, and had all the technology there and taping things. And the big thing is they got to play against their teachers, which made it even more fun. And that made the crowd get into it even more. So, and then one more I have to show Anna's. Mel will remember a lot of this. Oh, let me pull it up again. Sorry, guys. It's not letting me. Ah! Sorry. Let me try again.
We can hear it, Ann. We just can't.
I know. It's just navigating my page.
Sounds great. It sounds good.
And what was fun too is our announcer was one of our former students, and he has an intellectual disability, and he loves announcing at the games and everything. And so anyway, it's been really fun. So I just wanted to show you a little clip of what the game was like. The staff had a blast. You can see wearing afros and all sorts of stuff. And so anyway, if you have the chance to do something like that, I would highly recommend it. I think it was just a really great thing this year. Now I got to get that to stop. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right. So that was, there we go. That was a real big highlight of the year, and was a lot of fun. It really, they pulled it off. We call our YAC committee, MAC committee, Maroons Activation Committee, because we already have a YAC in the area. So, but our MAC committee really did a great job helping plan it and making it fun during the game. So that was a great way to kick off our season. A lot of people understood what it was. So then when we had a game, people knew what in the world we were talking about, since it was so new. So, all right. Another thing we did, I don't know how many of you guys did, sorry, I'm trying to get this. There we go. How many did the polar plunge this past year? Did a lot of people? I can't see my screen here, but did anybody? I can't hear anybody.
Done it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, that was a really fun thing we did this last year. It was our first year doing it, and we just decided to do it quick, a couple weeks beforehand. And so we didn't get a whole lot of people signed up because they already had a lot of other things that they had committed to. But that was one way that we got our MAT committee, our Youth Activation Committee, plugged in, is they promoted it by going to a lot of different classrooms and just talking about it. We played a great promotional video that Special Olympics had about what polar plunge is, and we would do that during a chapel or assembly. And I was kind of a little bug in a lot of the teachers' ears, constantly asking them to join our team. And one thing I appreciate about Special Olympics, it was so easy to post and advertise this kind of thing on social media. And it was also super easy for people to donate. I think that makes a really big difference. And so here's some pictures from that day in Holland. We got to jump into a dumpster with a liner. So that makes it a little interesting. And I think we did it in like February. So it was crazy cold out, and they had that water out there the day before. So it's definitely a polar plunge. And we had so much fun. You can see Melissa and I are wearing our outfits there that we got that day, and some of us when we were out there. So we're looking forward to next year. And they just did a really great job. And in the couple weeks, we raised about a little over $3,000, which isn't too bad. And Dan can talk about this more, but then some of that money will go to our unified sports program. So that was also another reason to do it. But overall, we just had such a good time. And it was, Special Olympics did a fantastic job organizing it. It was really fun. And then I had to share this. This is Will, one of our partners, who won an award for best plunge, because this guy's nuts. Belly flop. So I had to share that. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing that we were able to do before the school shut down was our Spread the Word for Inclusion Week. And one thing that was fantastic is that we have Karis, who was also on the state YAC team or committee. She wanted to do an independent study with me that second semester, which meant she had one class period with me every day. And all she did was plan, work on how we can grow and spread this culture of inclusion more in our school. And so this was a big thing that she planned. We had a chapel time with all the students. Charlie did an interpretive dance, and that was great. And then Karis adapted a play that she had found that kind of talked about inclusion and such, and just accepting differences in people, and adapted that to high school, and then also to include the words choose to include. That was in our t-shirts that we sold. These are those t-shirts, and our theme was choose to include. And that was a really impactful assembly or chapel, and really made a big difference. And here's a better picture here too of what it spelled at the end. The kids were all mixed up, and they were divided by colors, and the colors didn't like each other. And there was a whole thing that happened during the skit. And then they realized really being all together was the best thing, and we need to appreciate each other's differences. And then they ended up making these signs. And then once they got all organized back together, it spelled that out. So, and then they had a whole narrative along with that as well. So that is kind of some of the activities that we did. So, yeah.
And do you have like the, what she created for that play, like the script, I guess you would call it?
Yeah, I think so. And it's also the information from the person that originally wrote that. So I can find that, or if not, I can always ask Karis too. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry about some of the technical stuff. It's kind of odd to try and share and find different pages at the same time. So
I will say, being at the basketball game, the students that were at watching the game in the stands were definitely pulling for the unified team and not the teachers. That was very evident from their cheers.
Yeah, I have to say it was way more fun than I thought it was going to be, and a lot more impactful, especially when I talked to different people. And we had the superintendent involved. He was the coach of the faculty team, and it was great. So if you can pull something like that off at your school, and I think too, making it be a surprise, it just was really something the students needed that year, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was worth all the work putting into it. So.
Any other questions for Ann? Feel free to ask if you do have some. I know a funny story of Holland Christian. One of the first interscholastic basketball games, they played Zeeland, and the coach from Zeeland told me afterwards, you know, they're playing and one of the officials calls a foul on one of the Holland Christian students, and their whole student section that was there just started booing the official. He's like, and I was kind of like, ooh, this is Special Olympics. Are they supposed to be doing that? And I said, well, what would they do if they were watching a JV or a varsity game? And he was like, good point. So, you know, it's just kind of funny, but a funny story to hear.
Yeah.
But very cool. And even though they have fun with it, it was, you know, good sportsmanship all the way around. So, well, we're going to take let's take like a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 10 to 11. And then we'll kind of segue over. I'm going to play a video while we break, and then at 10:50 we'll get started back up. So feel free to stretch your legs or refill your coffee or whatever you need to do.
Do you enjoy going to school here at Pontiac?
Oh, yes I do. I really love coming here.
Like, everyone is friendly. We're all family, like, almost.
How do you feel about the school being so involved?
It's amazing. It makes everybody feel like they're wanted and needed in this world.
Gonna miss this school.
Previously on Inclusion Weekly, we talked about Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. This week, we'll be looking at one of the best ways to get your school involved.
Whole school engagement.
Whole school engagement means engaging the whole school in an inclusive activity. It can be anything that's fun, inclusive, and involves the whole school. Some examples of this are Fans in the Stands events,
having a unified soccer scrimmage to go and cheer on their teams.
getting to show the school a chance of like what people with disabilities can really do and get everyone out, have a good time. We're having like an actual game. Everyone would go wild. Everyone really goes crazy at those games. If you get people excited about inclusion, they might be willing to give something a chance.
It kind of opened my eyes. I want to be a special education teacher and just continue to make a difference for people with disabilities.
People go home and they talk to their parents or they get their friends involved. And then all of a sudden it goes from just being at school to being all around town.
Do you feel like we had enough people out there cheering us all on?
When everybody does their part, like, it can make a big difference. It has a big impact.
It'd be great if you guys could ride on the trolley or walk with us in the parade.
It makes me feel like super happy, like, because I never really got a lot of recognition before because, like, I have a harder time making friends, really.
Inclusion is so much more than just involving everyone, but it's truly knowing everyone. If someone wanted to make their school as involved as we are here, there's only really one thing that you can do, and it's just going out and exposing as many people as possible. People, no matter what, aren't that different from each other. We all want the same things.
I need to get
An easy activity you can start with at your school could be a banner signing, where the entire school signs a banner and pledges to support inclusion.
But you can think outside the box in the ways you choose to engage the entire school. Come up with your own event, large or small, to help spread the message of inclusion. To get involved, go to generationunified.org.
All right, we'll get started back up here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of jump in, share some other ways to involve, students, administrators, staff, maybe even some outside groups as well with your whole school engagement piece, and to really get them on board with what it means to be unified as a school. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And we are going to kick it off with pop quiz. Again, thank you to all of our speakers who just shared about their experience with whole school engagement. Great stuff. So now what we want to do is talk a little bit about leadership resources. And as you think about what type of things that SOMI could help provide from our office, what are some things that would be helpful to you all as you kind of look at your whole school engagement or even your youth leadership? So feel free to comment. No wrong answers here. This is really a question for us, but we'll take the first couple answers and provide some SOMI swag. So what are some leadership resources you'd like to see from our office for schools? We'll kind of let those roll in. Oops. Okay. So when we talk about whole school engagement, I just wanted to revisit this slide from Monday and kind of provide some ideas up front. These are mostly things that we've heard from our schools and, different activities that have been put out there at all different levels. And so you can see here, we've seen some assembly examples that schools have done. Whether your YAC members go and do a presentation for class like Maddie did, or if they have a video that's played school-wide, they can do that as well. If it's a Spread the Word inclusion campaign, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the hour here right now, we'll kind of share some resources that we have for Spread the Word inclusion, but you saw what Ann did there. Some of our schools have done poster contests and put them up around school. So the students decorate a poster around respect or inclusion or something of that nature, and then they share that out and post them around school. If it's a unified recess or adding some elements, unified sports into your field day. Books of inclusion and awareness, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and some resources that we have that you can utilize to spread the word to students through reading. Some of our students get on during morning announcements and we'll share about Unified and have some themes throughout the year that they'll talk about. Social media, we're going to talk about in depth, but I know even we'll share things out in our newsletter that goes around to all the schools that you can take some of those ideas and implement them within your school. And then we saw yesterday some of our schools have done some service projects with different groups. So whether it's cleanup day, an awareness day like Joan talked about. And so there's different ways to, through service, to spread the word through your school. All right, second pop quiz. What is one takeaway from yesterday that you want to implement in your school? So So we've got some answers coming in. So feel free to share those. We'll pick a couple of them and then provide some SOMI swag for you. And I'm actually going to segue over to a video. Let me see if I can do it the right way. So as we kind of get into the next part and talking about ways to change the culture in your school, I wanted to share this video. This is one of our top 5. Brighton was named top 5, I mentioned yesterday. And you're going to kind of see what that looks like in their school. So we're going to share this out and then come back to some discussion.
Welcome to Brighton, Michigan, where ESPN and Special Olympics celebrate the Bulldogs of Brighton High School and their achievement as one of ESPN's top 5 unified champion schools. Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools, funded by the U.S. Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education, received national banner recognition, having demonstrated commitment to inclusion by meeting 10 national standards of excellence. Special Olympics Unified Champion schools that receive national banner recognition must include Special Olympics Unified Sports, inclusive youth leadership, and whole school engagement.
The best part of Project Unified is meeting new people and learning new skills. It's fun to be part of a group. It's awesome when parents and students watch our games and cheer for us. They make us feel good when they show us their support.
On October 19th, students, faculty, family, and friends packed the Brighton Gym to celebrate their status as one of the most inclusive schools in the country.
With the Special Olympics, we want to reach 7 million acts of inclusion. In other words, you belong.
It's the school, it's the students, it's the teachers, it's the athletic director. It was something that was just embraced by the entire community. And as a parent of a special needs child, seeing that child blossom and just thrive in an environment that encourages that, and watching what it's done for the other students, the respect in the school is just tremendous.
The Bulldogs have one of the best athletic programs in the state, and unified sports is a big part of that success. This past season, the unified basketball team brought home the state championship. The champs showed off how they captured the title in front of a packed house during the banner presentation pep rally.
Unified sports is the opportunity for kids that have disabilities to play with kids that don't. And it's a great way just to get everyone involved. And when you're on the court, I mean, we're all basketball players, we're all bocce ball players, so it's all just one team.
Brighton High School, an ESPN Top 5 Unified Champion School. Leaders in the inclusion revolution.
All right, so you can kind of see there, Brighton, one of the reasons that they were nominated, one of the big reasons I should say that they were nominated for the Top 5 award was because of how they've really taken it from a group of students that was involved in a sports team to it's in their athletics department, and it's in kind of all the fibers of their high school. And so pretty cool to see and to be recognized for that. But really what we're talking about is not just changing the environment for some of the students. It's really kind of adopting what it means to be unified. And so taking it from affecting just, 10 students that are involved with basketball and 10 students that are part of your YAC and it being a school club to really making go from that to this where you have all of their students involved. And you can go to an athletics game and they've got a student section at their unified games, those sorts of things. So very cool. And just wanted to kind of highlight that. What we wanted to do is start off with a question to everyone and to ask some of you that have been involved, how have you engaged more students in your school? What are some of those things? We've heard some of that with reaching out to other groups. I think Melissa mentioned earlier, getting other clubs involved like National Honor Society or the Key Club. What are some of the ways that you've reached beyond your smaller sports group and your smaller YAC to get more students involved? I'm going to give a couple minutes for some of those to come in, and I know Danielle said that they have a Staff versus Unified basketball game as well. Do you want to share about that and how you kind of set that up and what that looked like?
Sure. So this spring we were looking at whole school engagement, and we looked at how can we get kids involved. Our pep rallies are huge. Most of the kids they get super excited about the pep rallies. So we had all of our kids, our unified team, play the staff at our basketball game, and it was like the coolest thing ever. One of our students made like a 3-pointer and the whole gym went crazy, and it was very cool to see, especially because a lot of our kids, they love basketball. That's like what they do. So it was very fun. We had a cool staff group. Some of them had played basketball in high school and in college too. So it was very competitive, but it was awesome.
Very cool. So I'm taking an event that you already were doing at a pep assembly and just adding some unified hoops into it and getting staff involved. That's a great way to start it. What other ways have some schools brought other students into the fold and got them involved with their Unified Champion Schools program? All right, they're rolling in now. Natalie, do you want to tell us about Bust the Bus?
Yeah, so when we do some events that are during the day or, anything that happens during the school day, I make an announcement. We call it Bust the Bus. If we have open seats, then I have student volunteers that come and we make sure, they clear it with their teachers of the classes they're going to miss. They're excused for whatever classes, but it's on their, Scouts honor that they're going to make up their work. And then we make sure those students make posters and so forth or some type of whatever. And I kind of brief them on how to cheer and what to expect. And that way we're reaching out to some other students that aren't always peer-to-peer. They aren't always in a club all the time. So I think sometimes we forget about the kids that'll be great partners and would be great role models. And not seeing the same kids doing the same things all the time. So we have a lot of our regular kids that are exhausted and are gone all the time because the same kids are doing everything, right? So it's just a way to reach out to some different kids who you might not think would have been leaders because they're not in other programs, and maybe Unified is the only program that they're in. So that's one of the things I try to do to get some other kids involved and let them showcase their leadership skills and have an opportunity.
Very cool. I think we hear that a lot from a lot of different schools, is sometimes you're surprised at who gets involved and who really enjoys it and takes ownership of it. And a lot of times when you're thinking about, going out and starting a unified sport and who are your gen ed students that are going to get involved, it's not necessarily your varsity athletes or some of those students that are super involved, it's some of those other students that maybe haven't found their, their group yet. And so that's a perfect point. Sometimes it brings some of those students that you'd never expect to get involved with it, and they do just as well as anyone. So Ashley mentioned that they do a game during lunch, so they're able to watch it during the school day. And then, because she's at a middle school, they also have scheduled games directly after school. So instead of students leaving and then only a few coming back to watch, they're able to go right after school and watch it, and then just stick around. So a couple other things coming in. Nell also does a back to school event where they kind of tie in and sign their unified poster and take the pledge, as well as announcing their unified events during school announcements, which we love. And as we know, you put some of our students on a microphone and it's the highlight, right? So good way to use those skills for those that are comfortable with sharing what, sharing once they have the microphone in hand. So I think this is a good point here. So Melissa, if you want to share about how yours kind of went from a project of a couple students and how that kind of evolved and what that looked like to becoming more school-wide and how they built that, I would love to hear more about that.
Okay. Gosh, about 3 years ago, I had 2 junior students come to me as part of the DECA program, which is a marketing program attached to our marketing elective course. And they wanted to start a project Unified Club because one of their parents was a teacher in another district and that was running there. So they needed a school sponsor. So as a school social worker, the principal asked me to get involved. I cried, got all excited. And then we stumbled for a year trying to figure out how it all went together because I had no idea what it was. But in any event, because DECA requires them to do fundraising and whole school engagement and all of these different things for the students to go in and participate in different things, it was a perfect way for these really highly motivated kids to have to go in and develop this program. So they developed all of the information and went to our self-contained special education classrooms and encouraged these kids to come to our club. In addition, Davison they have a delayed Wednesday day where our classes don't start till 2 hours later. But a lot of our special ed kids still ride that early morning bus. And so we had about an hour of dead time in the morning where they were just sitting in a hallway. So it was a perfect time for us to meet as a club because my kids were all there anyway. I didn't have to worry about transportation after school. And so that's what we ended up doing is we would meet about once or twice a month and we would just get together and we did minute to win it things. We were able to get into the gym and a lot of our students leaders that were part of DECA were also part of like the varsity volleyball team and varsity basketball team. So they would bring in players to just teach basic fundamentals. So we worked on shooting baskets. We worked on kicking a soccer ball into a goal. And then we did recreational things. So it was really cool. It was how we also did Polar Plunge for 2 years, is that these DECA students led our Polar Plunge fundraising efforts. And got our community involved. They took our club to the Genesee County Director of Social or Special Ed Directors meetings. They went to our school board and presented what we were doing. And it was all tied to what they had to do to meet their DECA and their marketing requirements. So they just pretty much needed me to be sort of the one that navigated how do we get the funding, how do we make sure we're meeting these things and be the liaison with their administration. So it was a perfect segue to bring them in. And like I said, they were highly motivated, they were organized, and they had to do this in order to get good grades. So it made it really pretty easy for me. And what was really cool is that they also provided great leadership to my special ed kids who then became my pretty outspoken leaders. So like this was our 3rd year and a lot of those kids, 18 of those kids since graduated this year, but like my special ed kids from our cognitively impaired programs were some of our most outspoken leaders in terms of, we're going to do this, I want to do that, no, we're not going to do this, you know, and then raising the adaptability questions too, which was awesome, because they would be like, no, we have so-and-so that has a heart problem, we can't do this, but how do we get that person involved? So a lot of those awkward discussions that we had at the very beginning of our club's development, the kids were, it was kind of normal behavior then in talking about how do we adapt, how do we include, how do we do all of those things that we really want to see our kids in our community take on. And then that also led to us getting like student council involved, Key Club, because they would see what we were doing school-wide and they would want to participate in links. So I'd say, just come on Wednesday and come on over, and that's how I got a lot of my gen ed involvement.
Super cool. I love that. Taking some of the skills that they're learning and putting them to use, like marketing and getting the word out. That's perfect. Very cool. I saw another one come in about bulletin boards. We heard Natalie talk about those as well, with like the cases that maybe aren't filled, or people aren't utilizing bulletin boards as much, that are maybe in a high traffic area. Ask if you can use them and utilize it to promote your program. We had one school that did, an elementary school, and they did a bulletin board campaign where they created all these different, you know, cut them out of different construction paper and different sizes and designs, but it was all these different fish. And so they had each student, each staff member decorate one, and then they put it up on a bulletin board, and then it went beyond the bulletin board, and they kind of had the theme of, we're all different, but we all swim together. Perfect. Simple. It's a way to, and, you know, they had some information about Unified on there and what it meant to be a unified school. You know, that's, can be as creative and as simple as something like that. So love seeing those ideas come in. Lots of good stuff. You know, ways to just get more students involved. So let me share my screen back. Oh, wrong one. My desktop, if anyone's interested. There we go. So here's some other ways that we've heard from some of our schools. You know, we often hear about getting varsity athletes involved, or, you know, athletes on basketball teams, whether it's middle school, high school, or even some, you know, youth organizations, you know, inviting those athletes to assist at practice or to coach. I know we've had some that they serve as the coaches, and then they have a staff member that kind of helps oversee it, but they really let the students coach. You know, or have partner with your athletes, you know, if it's soccer, and see if they want to run a clinic to kick off the season, or that type of thing. And just really, you know, you kind of get some momentum from there. And we even have one school that brings their unified team and plays against the varsity team. You know, they pack the stands at night, and I think it's a fundraiser, and they do a great job with that to kind of kick off both of their basketball seasons. We heard a little bit yesterday about, and just now, about working with different student groups and civic groups, and volunteering on projects with them, or having them come and volunteer for unified purposes, whether it's helping with sports, whether it's creating signs and coming to a game and being fans in the stands. Fans in the stands is one of the best ways to really kind of infuse that inclusion in your building. You know, working with your student sections, like we saw at Holland Christian, and having them embrace it and come to the games early and attend the unified games. You know, inviting students outside of your YAC to volunteer with UCS. Maybe if you're doing banner signing during lunch, where students can come up and take the pledge, are there other students in the building who you think may want to help volunteer? You know, have them come, or bring some of their friends, or have them go around to the lunch tables and ask students to come up and sign the pledge. So it's not just your YAC students doing it, but you're bringing in some other students. If you've got some other student orgs on campus that are promoting inclusion, you know, get them involved, or go to their events. So you're kind of supporting each other. I know we went to a conference in California where they do a big day where they kind kind of have a unified day, and they did unified basketball. And then a bunch of student organizations had different, they kind of took up the football field and had different tents up, and they had all these different initiatives, promoting inclusion and acceptance. And it was really cool because each one was a little different, and it was really driven towards awareness. And they also did some fitness activities out on the football field as well. And some of the students that were involved in that participated, but it was for everybody to go to, and you just kind of went around, and they had a little check box that you could get a stamp from the different groups you visited. And then just a really cool way to kind of, take it a step up. It was similar to what you might see with a disability awareness fair, but just kind of centered on inclusion and acceptance. So the other thing you can do is, if you have a student newspaper or, student broadcast, invite them to cover your events. We had one group that they filmed a whole kind of story on Unified and highlighted it, on their school broadcast. And again, we heard yesterday, yearbook. You got some yearbook students, have your Unified team in the yearbook. You'll have them highlighted alongside some of the other teams. And then, if you've got, we hear this from some of our elementary schools, if they have a contained classroom, or if they're doing some unified events, invite some of the other classrooms down each week or every other week to experience Unified and play or cheer on students as they go through the Unified activities. It's a great way to kind of introduce the concept school-wide. I know Ann mentioned she does a Victory Day that they do. Do you want to talk about that? Because I feel like those are becoming more and more popular. Ann, do you want to share what Victory Day looks like?
So this is pretty much a district-wide event that we do. We used to do we had an event called Game On, where Kirk Cousins, he's a graduate of Holland Christian High School. He comes and does a touch flag football type game with other alumni and stuff. So it's a big fundraiser for the school already. And so a large amount of the community come in. So they decided to attach this Victory Day onto that. So before they do the big game with Kirk Cousins and such, we invite some different organizations that support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, whether it's a place where they live, or maybe it's a hangout after school like Compassionate Heart Ministries. And they come in, and with our football team and other students in the school, the cheer team and such, they get to do some different experiences out in the field with running a touchdown, doing some cheering on the sidelines, and a variety of different activities. It's a lot of fun. And we pair up students from the high school that aren't necessarily attached to Unified or our Peer Link program. So it really involves a lot more students, and they get paired up with some of the people that come in from the community. And then we also use our athletes to help out with some of those, so they have a leadership role with that as well. But the last time we did it, it was really successful, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I think we've got more and more schools that are doing those type of activities with clinics and Victory Days. So very cool. So we talk about students, and sometimes that's probably easier than getting adults involved, right? How do you reach, we had a question yesterday about administrators, but what are some ways that we've been able to reach out to other adults in the building or even outside of the building and get them involved? So we'd like to ask you all, what are some of those ways that you've been able to involve others outside of where we started with Unified, sort of in the adult population, whether it be other educators, administrators, parents even. So feel free to either share those in the chat, or you can just speak up and share verbally.
Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, Meredith from Lansing.
I'm shocked you've been this quiet, Meredith.
I have a 3-year-old that has to So in case you hear some loud TV getting turned up. I think us in Lansing, as Dan and Danielle and Jamie know, we have overturned with our principals and liaisons from every school from year to year and all that stuff. So with our adapted PE program, we're in the schools every day. So we just have to go find that new liaison and new person. Kudos to Everett this year finally getting a national banner. Since I've started, we've had like 5 different liaisons, but the program still happens there because there is the other administration buy-in and just some of the teachers that continue to be at that school, and the students know that that program is there. I mean, the students ebb and flow, as I feel like most schools do. When we first started out at Everett, we had the CI program in that building. Now we have the ASD programs in that building. So those, as we know, those athlete abilities kind of fluctuate, but we're reaching out to our resource room students more now because of Danielle and because of Rachel that we have there. We used to have our deaf and hard of hearing program there, and so we made gains in that, but then that teacher left and they haven't replaced her. So we're just active in Lansing for our adaptive PE program, just finding those liaisons and talking to and telling the principals, hey, we have this money. You don't, like, all you have to do is do unified, and Victoria and I, we will say, hey, we'll do unified PE, come down to our elementary PE classes. We'll push in with our students to our gen ed PE. And we've done a lot with our gen ed PE this year, just to make sure that we are being included, and just the way that gen ed PE is set up in Lansing is a little different than most typical elementary schools. So I think it's just always keeping the conversation going in those buildings and just wearing all those shirts that we have, and just keeping the word going and getting it. And every year Ann will send out to every single principal and secretaries, we have this opportunity in Lansing. You've done it in years past. Here's what is currently going on in Lansing. And I know we have a bigger hook in our high schools because those teachers seem to stick around more. It's our elementaries that either like the social worker will go, the resource room teacher will go. Sometimes we have speech pathologists that will help us, but then they get shifted to other schools. So that's how we try and keep our, getting our adults going, and we just always keep the conversation going. And I have to attend, and then I have to go teach a PE class for Beekman. So I will hopefully see you guys later at the social hour.
Thank you. You're being summoned away. That's okay. Sarah, I saw you mentioned board members, and I know you had a great turnout at your basketball event. You want to share about that in Detroit?
Oops, yeah, I unmuted myself, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we just pretty much what it sounds like. We invite stakeholders, including our board members and administrators, to come and volunteer and get hands-on at our events, which helps a lot for sure.
Very cool. And then not only seeing it, but being a part of it and volunteering at it is just as, if not more powerful, really. Danielle, you want to talk a little bit about that and how you did that with the application process?
I do. I want to add to Sarah's real quick that some of her board members and admin that showed up to the basketball tournament, that truly was their first time being there, and they just casually showed up because they could. And then they got so excited, and they were texting other admin in the district saying, if you're free, come here now, you need to see this. So don't get discouraged if just one gets out, because as soon as they love it, they spread that word very quickly. But for us, we had an application process for gen ed students to get into our unified class, but we both worked in a self-contained CI room, so our gen ed knowledge was pretty limited. So we talked to our health and PE teacher that was in the room next door, as well as the social worker, and just said, hey, can you help us kind of evaluate these applications, tell us more about these kids? And that is not a quick process. So we had a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion about it. And a lot of those kids were ones that the other staff had good relationships with, or were excited to see them reaching out. So then after students were accepted, they were checking in to see how those kids were doing. And then they'd be like, oh, what's this project they're working on? This looks like fun. And oh, you guys mentioned that you're going bowling in a couple weeks. And that interest just kept growing until finally they were at every meeting and a part of everything that we did.
Very cool. Awesome. So we had a couple others come in there Yeah, they do a big golf outing in Area 8 where Lansing Everett is, and they've got their superintendent coming to that. So keeping them in the know with the different events that they're doing. Ann asked about applications, which is probably a good time, let's see here, for me to segue over.
Hey, can I add one more thing about administration, getting administration involved?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we had unified basketball league in Area 8 for our high schools, and so we play like 10 games or something against other schools in the area throughout this season. And I forget if this is I think it's the second year. But my team from Sexton High School in Lansing, they really wanted their principal to come. And they just kept inviting him, and inviting him. And it was the students, like the athletes and the unified partners together, that would keep like seeing him in the hallway and be like, hey, we have a game next week, you coming? And so he finally came to one of the games, and like he got to see, I think, just the end of the game or something. But it meant so much to those students, and every student on the team went up and shook his hand. And I think it touched him to see how impacted the students were just at his presence there. But that was so cool that like the students were inviting him themselves. Like we as teachers encourage that, of course, but it was the students that brought it upon themselves to get the administrator involved, which was just, it worked out so well.
Awesome. And Victoria, didn't you have a young man who was a student who coached the team the first year?
Well, that was at Everett, actually.
Oh, okay.
So Meredith and Danielle and Rachel were more involved with them. But yeah, I can speak on that for a minute here. They had a student who didn't really want to play, but he wanted to coach. And so he organized the practices and coached them at the games and everything. And we were all really impressed at how he stepped up and just like not like assumed authority in an appropriate way. Oh, okay. Danielle's saying he coached this year too, even though he had already graduated. He was, I think, going to Lansing Community College, so he was still in town. And he came back and offered his time and energy. And I mean, he was creative. He was fun because he was a peer, so he gets them really well. But that was really cool to see a student step up, kind of like Catherine was sharing earlier with her student Gianna, only this was at the high school level. So it is cool to see those students when they step up to lead.
Absolutely, it was awesome, and he was running the show. You could tell, and his peers totally respected him. And he had a phys ed teacher, I think, right, that assisted, but he pretty much let that young man make substitutions and call timeouts and put a game plan together. It was really cool to see. So that was an awesome example of getting students involved. So perfect. Let's see here. Okay, bringing back some former students. Perfect. We're going to talk about that as well when we kind of talk a little bit about transition. So I wanted to show this real quickly, our Dropbox, and I put the link in the chat yesterday and today. Basically what we've done here is we've gone in and created a UCS Educator Resources Dropbox for all of you. And I think when I go in and share it, I'm going to look at it tonight, but I think there's a way I can share it so all of you can put information in as opposed to just sending it to us. But I'll look at that tonight and then I'll share it again tomorrow. We'll email this out to everyone and it'll end up on our website eventually as well. Okay, Jamie did. Thanks, Jamie. So basically, we kind of broke it up into different categories, and we'll break it down even further as we kind of add stuff to this and get some of our social media stuff wrapped up and ready to go for the school year. But I'm going to put the presentations in here for the kickoff conference. The registration materials that Margaret showed on Monday are all here now. So feel free to get on here and look. And we created a educator to educator resources. So if you have some different things, like Ann asked for, if it's application that you utilize for students to apply to be in the club, or maybe it's, a packet like disability awareness that Joan had, that sort of thing. Feel free to share it into here, and then that way we can all easily access it. But our goal this year is to really kind of use this as a hub for all these awesome resources that you all have created and that we've created and our North American office has created, so that you all can find this easily, reference it, check it out periodically. We're going to continue to look at it and update it, and if we see something really cool that comes in, we'll probably highlight it in our newsletter that goes out, that sort of thing. So just really want this to be a source, as we know, with things and how they're going to be changing probably fast and multiple times between now and the end of the year, that you can utilize it for, hopefully it's helpful for you and you can utilize it throughout the school year. All right, all great examples. Here's a couple other ways, and certainly some of these have probably been talked about or were just talked about, but identifying a leadership team, so it doesn't just have to be you, whether that's within your district or just within your school. I think as we get more and more ways to have the program, like in athletics and getting the athletics director involved, or some of your gen ed teachers, having those supporters throughout your school that can really help promote the program, grow the program, get other people there. Having that continuity, like Meredith was saying, you might be in one of those schools that's changing every single day, and sometimes, or every single year, sometimes multiple times throughout the year. Having those key people involved, like her and Victoria and some of the educators they've had throughout the years that continue to, hey, I'm leaving this school, I'm going across the city to another school, but I know the next person that can take this on and head it up, those sorts of things. A big one, and I know when we talk to a lot of new schools, we see the fear in their eyes when we're explaining the program, right? And they're like, how am I gonna do all this? How am I gonna recruit gen ed students? Find a teacher to co-lead it. Maybe it's a gen ed teacher, maybe it's phys ed teacher, that sort of thing. Maybe it's somebody else within the district, like a social worker, or I think Steve said yesterday he reached out to a couple staff members and said, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And they're now running that program and getting others involved. I mean, that's what it takes. So we don't want this to just fall on your shoulders. We want you to be able to reach out to others. And, once people see it, sometimes it's you and one other, and then more and more want to get involved. I think making the ask, letting people know what's going on. You heard Natalie yesterday mention how she just asked and said, hey, can we have, a stipend like the other clubs? Yeah, sure. Can we have this case that's not being used and promote Unified? Sure. A lot of times it's just asking and seeing where the conversation goes. Again, sharing with administrators and school board. I think your administrators and your school board want to know the good things that are going on in their buildings. So when you have an event, invite them to it. And also when you have stories that you share with us and tell us the impact that it has, share those with them as well. And maybe it'll pique their interest. Like Victoria was saying, have students share or invite, and have the students invite them, have them tell their stories. I think one as well is asking parents if they're interested in coaching. It doesn't have to be you that coaches or assists with practice, or you saw the parent on the Brighton video, her telling her story about how it's impacted her student, both gen ed and special education. I think that's one of the things that we hear from a lot of our educators as well, is that the impact that parents of gen ed students feel from it and how it's changed their student is just as powerful as those parents of special education students. And that shows that it really changes the world for all students. So and we've even had a few schools that the gen ed parents have stepped up and said, hey, I love basketball or soccer, or I'd love to help coach. So make that ask to those parents as well. One of the other things that Lansing Public does really well is they have a school newsletter that goes out to their our district newsletter, I should say. And they're always submitting stories to that for Unified Champion schools. I mean, it's in almost every single one, so here's what they did. They held a track and field event, and here's the students and the schools that were involved, and there's pictures, and that goes out to their district so everyone knows what's going on with Unified. Feel free to use those school communications to highlight your program. We heard a couple stories yesterday, Grand Blanc being one, where they started a unified life skills class by inviting one of their educators who wasn't necessarily in the realm of sports. Get them involved and see where it goes. As you can see, as it kind of builds and builds, others want a piece of the magic as well, and want it to permeate over into their world. So, and then I saw on here inviting administrators or staff to officiate games. I remember going to one of our first league games, and the superintendent was out there officiating. It doesn't have to be certified officials. Maybe you have some of those administrators or teachers or staff members that want to get involved and officiate. The principal at Northville High School, he officiates almost all of their home games. And then they had a tournament over in Novi, and he was there officiating there as well. So it's very cool to get them involved. And like we say so many other times, if people see it, they're on board. And so if you can get them there and have them be a part of it. Sarah also mentioned National Honor Society advisors. Can you reach out to them and get them and their students involved to volunteer and be a part of it? Okay. So we've heard a little bit about this as well, and I know I mentioned it, I think, when Melissa shared about the homecoming parade earlier. What events do you all have in school currently that maybe you have, or maybe you're sitting here hearing all this great information that's being shared that you're thinking, hey, we could add Unified into that. That would be awesome. So thinking about some of those things that your school or your district does and how you might be able to get your Unified program to be a part of it, to spread the word throughout school. Feel free to unmute yourself and share, or put it in the group chat as well. Hosting a polar plunge could be an option. That's something that your school would be interested in. Talk to our staff, and we can connect you with our law enforcement torch run staff. Think about what better way to spread the word throughout your school than to have a bunch of people dressed up in goofy costumes and jump in ice cold water and then run into the school to get warm, right? And another thing with polar plunges that we've seen is there's probably one of those wild and crazy teachers or administrators at your school that you can have them say, if we raise X amount of dollars through our school, you can pick my costume, or I'll wear whatever, So we've seen some of that from some of our schools, that they've approached a principal or the basketball coach or the football coach, and it's, there's likely one crazy staff member at each school that's willing to embarrass themselves for a good reason and jump into some cold water. So Danielle, I don't know if you've been keeping track of the chat, but I'm trying to get caught up if you've got some ideas there.
Talking about getting administrators in the polar plunge, if you have an administrator that just is not willing to jump in the cold water, one way we worked around that was we had a courtyard that was right in the middle of 4 major crossings, and we set up a slip-in slide. So when the kids did raise enough money, that administrator didn't go to the actual plunge, but they did do the slip-in slide covered in ice in the middle of the courtyard. Got to compromise sometimes with those administrators. Seen a few things about Unified Prom. Tara, you said that you did it. Was that separate from the school's prom, or it was just an additional initiative within the already planned prom? I don't see Taylor.
Is she here?
She's here, but she's muted, so I don't know if she's there right now. I do see some voluntelling mentions for admin, and yes, that's often a good way to get them in. Oh, Leslie asked, has anyone been told that unified dances are a safety issue? Their district has some different concerns, so it would be great if anyone has input on that.
I'd be interested to know that, because how would that be different than a dance?
That's our point exactly. So that's why I'm wondering if anyone actually did have to have a special waiver or special permission or anything like that, because we were told that it was a safety issue. So I was just wondering if that's a real thing.
With ours, any of our dances, because I was our senior advisor too last year, we have to have public safety at ours because it's district policy that we have like safety protocols there. So I know we were looking at throwing one possibly this year, and we know that we'd have to pay public safety to be there.
Gotcha.
Some of that, I think, still is just fear-based and a lack of understanding. Our community fair hosts a day where people with special needs and their families can come out and ride rides and play games for free, but they were very restricted on the rides that they opened. It was mostly the small kiddie ones, and we asked if they could at least add the Ferris wheel just to give something bigger, and they refused to do that because they said it wasn't safe to have people with special needs on the Ferris wheel. So sometimes it's just really, unfortunately, about that education. Leslie, I know you guys have had a lot of struggles, but maybe if you're just having classroom karaoke dance kind of party thing and could get them in there to see what that looks like, it might be a step in the right direction.
Oh, that's a great idea, Danielle. Thank you. Yeah, that is a good idea.
And I wonder too, if I know certain dances, you know, might be difficult to attend with sensory issues, that sort of thing, but whether that's an education piece or even if it's having your unified students and come as a group or invite each other to a traditional dance, if that's available, would be, you know, you don't necessarily have to create a new one, but, you know, unless you have want to create like a sensory one, but that's interesting that schools would take that stance. Mikkel, do you want to tell us about the Mackley basketball? I know you mentioned it earlier as well, and how you involve the community in that. I'm really interested. She's still on? Maybe not.
She's on, just muted.
Sorry, I'm here.
All right.
The Mackley basketball that we do is an event that we actually started this year. One of our local schools from Armada contacted us. The young lady who was part of her community service. She has a cousin, I think it's a cousin, is it a cousin or a nephew? I don't remember off the top of my head right now. But he has Down syndrome and he loves basketball and he wanted to be able to play basketball with real people. That's what that he said. So they approached us and asked us if we would want to host something with our unified students and the community to help bring awareness for unified sports and for people with disabilities. So of course we said yeah. So we had several different schools around the district from the gen ed schools come to us, and we hosted it on Saturday. It was a 3-hour camp, and students from everywhere came. They had to, we had volunteers from our families to be partners with every student that came that had a disability. And we even had the wheelchair basketball team from Macomb County come in and do some basketball moves in their wheelchairs for it. It was really great. It was such a success that we plan on doing it again this year. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Very cool. Seeing a lot about proms and dances. Again, I think Amy mentioned that, you know, they just come to their traditional prom. 5K, doing a 5K or a virtual 5K as a fundraiser. One, you could be part of a training. Certainly that would be something that would fit your unified sports component, and it could help sustain your program. So love those ideas.
Adding to that 5K component, there's a unified pair in Tennessee who is planning a unified 5K, but instead of it being based on getting times, they're having unified stations throughout where maybe people are taking pictures for social media in their new unified pairs or doing some kind of activity. And when people sign up, they can sign up as a unified pair already, or they can ask to be partnered with someone when they get there. And then that pair is partnered with another pair. So it's a group of 4 walking together, creating a lot of different friendships that may not have been there in the first place.
Cool. Awesome. Very good ideas. Yes, a 5K can be a lot of work, especially if you're talking about blocking roads and working with public safety and those types of things. But it could be something you could maybe do on campus too, if you've got a track or a large area. Spirit Week's a good one, and we've seen some virtual Spirit Weeks come about this spring when everything was canceled to kind of keep the inclusion going. So whether it's your traditional Spirit Week your school does or an additional one tied around a unified event, love that. You know, maybe one of the days you could do a unified day or something like that, or if you get your own Spirit Week, you can kind of build in whatever activities you want, like Maddie talked about.
Cindy, I heard about that on the news. Could you tell everyone a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. When we started some of our unified teams, we started slow. We have expanded and now have it almost in every sport. And this young man, who happens to be engaged to one of our parapros at our high school program, wanted to, because she was always gone with us doing things, he wanted to get involved. So he became a unified partner for basketball, then came to the conference last year and is now certified like in 3 or 4 different sports, and just was so taken with the program and what he saw it doing for our athletes that he recruited our high school teacher and his fiance to create sensory boxes. They installed them in his restaurant. The parents of some of our autistic students went to support it when we put it out there that they were doing that. And he now has a sensory night. His corporation, the people higher up, picked up on it. And now they're trying to spread it in restaurants across the state and across the nation.
Very cool. That's awesome.
And I didn't have to do anything except let him play. It was great.
That's even better, right? Thanks for sharing. Scott mentioned doing a fundraiser as part of Spirit Week. Scott, have you all done that? And if so, do you want to share about it? Give him a second. They did an amazing race with a penny drive between classes as a fundraiser. They did it during their Spirit Week. So a good way to tie that in and raise some funds for your program. We had a school store mentioned earlier, a morning concession cart. I know one of our schools down in the Monroe area has kind of a class that does a coffee shop. Very cool ideas. I'm going to jump back into our presentation. So a lot of these have been mentioned by now, but these are things that we kind of had initially, whether it's a game at an assembly, a unified night at your athletics event, or a game or a banner signing at one of your school events, like, could be a play, could be athletics. Is there a way for your unified group to be involved with a play on campus and, introduce, what the play is going to be, or get involved with it and actually be in it, that sort of thing. Field day, unified activities. We've had a little bit of that with some of our elementary schools. Really have introduced unified bocce to all of their participants by, getting involved through their field day and adding that to it. Talked a little bit about taking over either a homeroom or your announcements, and involving, awareness activities or videos during that. Respect Week is one that, or a Spirit Week, where, you kind of put the focus on unified and tie that into pumping up your school. Respect Week, some schools have done that where throughout the week they have different initiatives each day, whether it's a balloon release and a banner signing one day, and announcements or a video that they do one day. Danielle's going to talk about the books that kind of focus on inclusion or respect. And then, if you have a pep rally on campus and an assembly and you're announcing all the varsity and JV or the middle school A, B teams, and, see if they'll announce your unified team as well and give them some recognition in front of the whole school. Easy ways of things that are already happening in a lot of schools that you can maybe, just ask and see if you can be a part of it. So here's kind of an example, and I know somebody else mentioned having a game. I think it might have been Ashley Curtis over at Hazlitt. They invited everyone over at lunch to come watch a unified game. We had Heartland High School who did a really cool event where they invited in one of their rivals, Brighton. They had lunch together in the cafeteria during their lunch hour, and then they brought everyone down to the gymnasium to play unified basketball. And this place was packed. It was standing room only all the way around the gymnasium. So a cool way, parents were able to come in and watch it, similar to what Ann did, but instead of staff, they played against another school. So that's something that they did new this year, and really cool to see the teams come in and eat together in the lunchroom, and then go down to the gymnasium, and they made it they had the band there and announced them and kind of highlighted their unified programs. We also have a couple middle schools in Southwest Michigan that invited out a bunch of schools and said, hey, we're doing unified, and they kind of have a round robin basketball tournament most of the day. And so they have 6 or 8 schools now that come to this thing, and they rotate their students around. So the gym, it's a lot of parents that are there to watch from all the different schools, but then they bring their classes down throughout the day. And so students will come down, watch a game. Some of the students will filter out, new students will filter in, and they'll watch the next game. And it kind of, that way they're not missing class for the whole day, but they're able to see unified from a whole school piece. So super cool idea. So spread the word inclusion. One of the things that many of you are probably familiar with this, in the last 2 years, it's changed its focus to the inclusion piece as opposed to just spread the word to end the word. And I think that's in an effort to not only be positive, but to really, what we've seen with schools is how, it starts with respecting all students, especially the students with intellectual disabilities, but it really opens the door for students to include everyone, not just those with disabilities, but, different races, people that are different than them. It really kind of says, hey, you know what? Maybe we are more alike than different. And so it's now titled Spread the Word Inclusion. One of the things we're doing this year is just to, save some funds on our end, is we're kind of limiting the number of supplies that we can ship out at this time, just because we've had a lot of schools that have taken advantage of that, which we love, but to keep costs down. So let me reshare here so I can organize. Sorry about that, y'all. There we go. So what we're doing this year is you can order supplies from our office, and we have a quick form to fill out. You just list how many you want of each of the supplies. We have wristbands that the students can wear. We have the large posters that students can come up and they're blank, but they say spread the word inclusion, and with a lot of white space for students to either say what it is that they're going to be more inclusive and sign their name, or just sign their name. And you can also get small posters and stickers as well. We're not limiting the small posters or the stickers, just because those don't cost us a ton of money to ship. But this way, you can order a large banner, or however many large banners, 2 or 3 of them, and some wristbands. Invite students to come up, they sign the poster, you give them a wristband or a sticker, whatever it might be. And so we order those in bulk to save costs. And then we don't charge you for those. So if you're thinking, how can we do this? Here's a way to do it for free that is easy to plan. We've got, we can tell you exactly how to do it. The official date is March 3rd for 2021, but you can really do it at any time. A lot of our schools do it around March, but you're welcome to do it in the fall, spring, winter, whenever it works for your school. So not only that, but you can also tie in some other pieces, like we've heard, whether it's students sharing what it means to either not use the R word or to be inclusive, or, have your students leading up to when you're going to have the banner signing, make announcements, during homeroom or during announcement time. Put a video out there for students to see, so they're not just signing it to get a cool wristband, that they're actually understanding how it makes an impact in their school, and that sort of thing. So that's Spread the Word Inclusion, a very cool, easy to implement program that we can get you some supplies to your school, and then you can put this on and really highlight what your students are doing. I'm going to show a quick video. Make sure I have it pulled up. I don't know if there's any other, Danielle or Jamie, anything else on the chat box that you want to highlight while I do this?
I am looking for the book resource right now. I don't see it in the Dropbox, so it may need to be added again. I will let you know when it's there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I will share real quick. So this is another one of our Generation Unified videos, but I think it does a good job showing the impact on all students.
I knew of Tanner, just one of those boys that everyone gets to know of because of their behavior. I wasn't sure if he was going to graduate because he never came and he didn't care. It's almost like he didn't think he had a future. But over the course of the year, I think a lot of it's unified. He really matured.
Everyone knows Five for the high school. I dreaded being there. Thought it was like a jail. I would goof off. I would be the one that's just like making jokes all the time about people, about stupid things. I wasn't the best person. I didn't have the like sense of like, oh, I should be nice to this guy. He's having a rough day or something. I would joke around a little too far with people. I didn't want to behave, you know, bickering with other students. You just want to get noticed, you know? I'm like just frustrated with how hard the work was. I was like, God, I can't even imagine what it's like in college. Can't wait till school's over. I'm just going to start working for the rest of my life.
When I first met him, I did think that he tried to put on a show for other people. Sorry. But once I got to know him, I realized that he was a really nice and genuine person, and that he kind of just had a bad rep to him.
Emily's kind of like a weighted blanket on Tanner. She's very quiet, extremely smart, calming. He wanted to prove I'm good enough for her. I am.
Yeah. So I joined the Special Olympics Unified.
When we first started Unified, I heard his name, I went, oh no. I thought he was going to be talking back to Miss McKinnon. He was going to be a bad example for my students. But from day one, his behavior changed.
It opened my eyes. It was really different than what I expected. You mess me up? I'm gonna kill you. Everyone was just happy and like excited. When I got there's like Tanner and just stuff like that. It was just really, really cool to see that I can have that impact. Like they just really accepted me. It didn't just feel like just a club, like with just random kids and stuff. It was like all your friends, because they like me for me.
It's hard to give what you haven't received. I think when Tanner was given love and acceptance, he was able to give that back. My students didn't know about Tanner in his past and some of the things he had done.
It's okay. Everyone gets a chance.
So it gave Tanner a fresh slate. And I don't think he's had that.
I will say that Unified definitely impacted the way he acted. I saw him grow as a person. He was starting to be nicer. It made me really happy.
I thought I smelled something.
Oh, come on. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
How much fun I had at Unified. I was just like, okay, school's cool. Like I get to come to school. I get to go hang out with these kids all day. Hey, buddy. Spend time with my girlfriend. Just have a fun time. And like, not only was that like way less stressful, I got better grades and stuff. I didn't have the best grades, but it was better than before. It helped me out. I got a scholarship to college. Never thought I would do that.
I was really proud of him because, like, before I don't think he would have chosen to go to college, but I was really proud that he chose to keep going and play soccer in college.
I think Special Olympics is a great thing, not just for like the kids with disabilities. It's a great thing for kids like me. It can change people's lives.
I believe in him. I think he's going to do amazing things. I really do. I really do.
Came a long way, and I think Unified really helped in seeing like the bigger picture. You don't need to be a 4.0, going to Harvard, going to Princeton type of student. Anybody can do it. Just join Unified. I'm pretty sure it could be anybody's thing.
Sorry. Pretty cool video though. I like how it kind of highlights that it's really for all students and really gives the opportunity and can change students that maybe you never thought it would. So That kind of leads us to our next slide. Story time. So one of the things we're always looking from, and obviously we ask that everyone turns in 2 stories throughout the school year, whether it be something that you put together about an event, or one of your students does, or somebody else does, but something that we've been asking from our schools is if you have an awesome story, or the impact, if you can speak to the impact it's had on a student or your school or even your staff or parents, we want to hear about that stuff. You've seen quite a few of the videos from Generation Unified that they've put together. And so they're always asking us, hey, if you've got an interesting story, we want to know about it, because we may come and make a video about it, or we may come and cover it. So we're always looking for those types of stories. And even if it's something that, maybe a student, doesn't want to be featured in a video, that's okay, because it also helps us when we share with the Department of Education and all the great things that you all are doing. If we can share a story with them so they know what's going on and they can see the impact, it doesn't have to be shared out to media and everything. And we can even just share it with them and say, hey, here's something that's happening. I know one of my favorite stories, and those of you that know me know I love to tell stories, so I'll make it brief. But one of my favorite things that I've heard from one of our schools is there was an elementary school, it's actually Meadowbrook, who is our elementary school that got recognized as a banner school. This was when they first started, like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. They do bocce every Friday, and one of the students in the special education class wanted to have a birthday party, and so they invited all their students, and like 25 kids came to this birthday party. Well, the mom said that she never thought she'd have a birthday party for her son, let alone have 25 kids come to it. And so they were moving out to California because for work, and our liaison told us the first thing that mother did was called Special Olympics Southern California and said, where are your unified champion schools? Because I want my son to go to one, because it's had such an impact on us here. So those are the kind of things that we love to hear and share. And so what you can do is, like we said, have students write their story even as a project, or have them put a story together and send it to us or to administrators, whoever that is, just because we know that those impact statements can really make a difference. Let us know, Jamie, myself, Danielle, Margaret, or tag us on social media with something that you have going on. Or if there's something that you're highlighting, feel free to share it with our social media. And our marketing and public relations department loves to share unified stories, even if it's just a quote or, from a parent or one of you or one of your students. They'd love to get a photo of them, make a cool graphic, and share that out. And they're very talented when it comes to that stuff. You can record your students, and this is something you can even do from a distance, virtually. Have them make a video and put it together, and whether it's a theme, like what it feels like to be included, or how Unified has changed you, those sorts of things. Or have a parent tell their story. Again, you all have seen it day in and day out and are the ones making the difference and see how it changes students. Share that with us. The other thing is, we have one of our schools that started, Clawson High School, who started League Play. They reached out to their media department, and they called it a video, but it was a short film. It was about 30 minutes long, and I think we could put that in the Dropbox, but it's awesome. It shows highlights from all of their games and talks about how they started and where they started, and they interview about 5 or 6 parents on the video or the film, and just really highlights how it's made a difference for their school. And that's just in one basketball season. So awesome job. So maybe you've got, like we mentioned, a media group or a media class, or teachers in your building, or a journalism class. Hey, have one of your students or a journalism student come and cover your team and how it goes from day one to the end of the year and how it changes the culture. It's a great way great opportunity for them to share a story. And the other thing is, when you have cool events, feel free to reach out to media. We've had a lot of media coverage in the last couple of years of unified stuff going on, and then they'll come and cover it. And then, you know, even I've had a few things forwarded from our North American office of like, hey, this is a really cool story we saw that popped up on our feed from Holland or the Detroit Free Press or whatever that might be. So I think that's one of the things this year that, with everything else going on in this year and beyond, that we really want to hear from you all about the impact being made. And one of the things I was randomly thinking about this morning is, you know, if you've got stories like that share about the impact, we should probably put them together in a sort of a packet of stories that we can continuously share with our legislators and our Department of Ed and even, you know, our sponsors, that sort of thing. So feel free to reach out with us and we can help connect the dots, and it's an important piece. And you see, like I said, you see in these videos that we've shown that are very well done, could be one of your students, could be you all featured on a video. So all it takes is sharing that with us or tagging SO North America and something you're doing, and they've got a staff who loves to travel and loves to pick up those stories and interview students, and you know, that's what they do. So by all means, I think one of the first things I ever did was we did a unified intramural league at CMU, and I tweeted it, just #PlayUnified, and I think I put Special Olympics on it, and I got a call the next day in my office, and they're like, tell us more about what you're doing there. And now there's 200 schools across the country that are doing unified intramurals because they picked it up and pushed it out and started promoting it to other colleges, and it was just a tweet, so you never know where it's going to go. I don't know, is Natalie Queen still on? She is?
Yeah.
Natalie, do you want to tell the story that you emailed us about your student that had the opportunity to be in the top 10?
Oh, yeah. So had a student who was in my unified class, and then they came down to the unified class probably 2 weeks in and said that congratulated her. She was in the top 10, but she needed to take a content area class. And the elective she was going to need to give up was her unified class. And she just said, you know, being in the top 10 is just a label, and I'm not interested because no one's going to be with my athlete. So I don't need to be in the top 10. I'd rather stay in unified.
Love that story. And that was just a simple email that she emailed us and said, hey, I have to tell you this. And, you know, something as simple as that. I remember that next week, I think I was going to the regional meetings with the MHSAA, and I told that story in front of 150 athletic directors. Like, this is the impact it's going to have on your students, not just your students in special education. So, you know, send us an email, let us know. We love to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that I said I would do whatever I needed to do in my unified class to make it a content area class. I'm like, I would do anything and do everything so she could keep, you know, not have to give that up. But I mean, I really, really admired her for that. But I said, I will do anything to make my class a content area class. For her, I will, you know, do whatever. But I couldn't do it. They wouldn't let me. So it was fine.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. So as we talk about virtual and what that might look like, we have some ideas that we're going to share, and then show a couple websites. And what's great about it is not only us, but I mean, obviously every Special Olympics state program is trying to figure this out as well. And so we are the best organization in the world at just sharing and taking and making it our own. And so we've got a lot of resources that not only we've created, but other state programs have. And so we're going to put these in the Dropbox as well. You know, we talked about the video. Is it something that can be sent out and tweeted out by your school or your district, you know, and just kind of have some different themes to it. Social media campaigns, we have a number of them. Special Olympics New York did like one every week or something, or once a month. I think it was once every week since we've been since the pandemic hit, so to speak. So they had a high five campaign where you take a picture of you giving a high five, and then Jamie would give a high five the other way, and then we would put it together and tweet it out. And then, you know, I think they had a unified high five challenge, and there was all these pictures that popped up. I think even Tim Schreiber, our board chair for Special Olympics International, did one with a student. They did a Detail Me where you take a picture and send it to somebody else in the Unified Club and say, detail me, make me a superhero or a professional athlete or an animal, and then they use a photo app to draw on it and then send it back, that kind of stuff, and then they share it out. So there's a bunch of different ones, and I'm going to create a folder and we'll share those into there for different social media campaigns that you can use. And during this virtual time, that could be your whole school engagement piece, right? And hopefully you can get other groups involved, you know, whether it's, I think one of the, it's the Pass It On challenge that I have listed there, where, you know, a student dribbling a basketball, you saw a lot of sports teams doing this, and then they spin it on their finger and toss it off, and then the next person would catch it and then do a trick. And so one of our unified schools did it, and then tagged a couple other schools and said, it's your turn. And then a couple of them did it. So good way to kind of spread the word on social media and get people to notice what you're doing, even from a virtual in a distant place. You mentioned Penny from Bay City Central had regular conference calls with Unified Champion Schools, and you know, even if it's bringing in other student groups from, you know, your school and inviting them in to be a part of your UCS group, you could do that. And then we have a number of resources through our Generation Unified website. And I'll kind of show you where those are at real quick. So in the Generation Unified webpage here, they have one called Games. If you click on that, they created, when all of this happened, some different games and challenges. And so I'm going to come back to the inclusion tiles, but they've got a Facebook group that students can join and share. They have a weekly social media challenge of different activities that they do all throughout the year, every week. And some of them you can even win some prizes. And then they've got these stay-at-home activities. We talked about School of Strength. They've put together scavenger hunts. They've got a workout now, a new workout activity that they just rolled out. A bingo game, a dance party, or, you know, some different activities that you can do with dance. This here is an easy thing for students to say what respect means to them and post on social media. So there's all these different activities here. And just a great way, you know, Spirit Week, like we mentioned, a great way to keep students involved. You can work them into class, you can work them into your school culture and other groups, so they can be a part of that. So now inclusion tiles are awesome. And we're going to look into getting some of these potentially in like physical inclusion tiles that we can share out as well. But they've made it a virtual game as well. And so basically it's super easy. The instructions are 3 steps. They have these different tiles, and you go in, you just click at the bottom and click play now. And so there's these 9 tiles that describe different things related to inclusion. So if you're a difference, inclusion, lasting friendship. And the goal is to situate these. You just drag them and move them however you want, and they'll switch. Is you're kind of going through what a journey in inclusion would look like. And so does it start with avoidance or exclusion? And then you link it all the way through. What's great about it is that there's no perfect answer. And what's also great about it is we had a December conference when they kind of rolled these out. And so you've got probably, I don't know, 150, 200 Special Olympics Unified Champion schools and even some educators, professionals in the room. And we're sitting at tables, putting them together and then comparing, and everyone at your table has something different, you know, so it sparks that conversation. It's, you know, we're able to sit there and say, well, why'd you put that one there? I have this one here. And then some of them are totally different. And it's just a very good thing about, you know, it's got the visuals on there. It's got, and some of our professionals were saying, well, you know, this one includes somebody that utilizes a wheelchair, you know, so that's more appropriate here. And so some people were using the visual guide, some people were using the words that were on here, some were just looking at the title word. But it's really interesting to see how everyone has a different perspective and sort of how that relates back to inclusion and how you get to fully include individuals in your classroom and beyond. So so that's a great resource, and I encourage you to have your students do it, because I think it's really kind of a welcoming thing for them, and something that we had. I mean, we could have kept talking on it. We only talked for about 45 minutes, but it really sparked conversation in our circles. So the other thing I just wanted to mention before I hand it over to Danielle is transition. This is something that we're constantly trying to promote and to get better at. Admittedly, we're not the best at it, and I think a lot of our state programs are trying to figure this out alongside us, so that's a positive. Is when we are talking about students either going from one school to the next to being able to stay involved in Unified, but also what do we do when they graduate? And so not just our students that are in special education, you know, certainly they can come and be a part of the traditional Special Olympics program. But how do we keep some of those students that are staying in your communities that maybe are your general education students? You saw in the video, Tanner said he wants to coach Unified Sports. Unified Sports isn't just in schools. It can be an adult program. And so, you know, is it a Unified alumni team? That's something that we've talked about. Is it, this past year we implemented, not just experimented, but implemented developmental sports, where you've got young athletes for children up to age 7. What does that 8 to 12 sports range look like, where we have students who practice for 8 weeks and then they go to a tournament and experience, you know, going from the skills to a team practice to actually competing and playing in a game. And so keep that on your radar. We're going to work with our state YAC this year to develop a transition plan and kind of a graduation packet, and something that's attractive to students to say, hey, I want to stay involved. I'm going to college. I can be part of an SO college club and do what I'm doing now on my college campus, or I'm staying in my community. How can I stay involved? Do I want to coach? Do I want to be a Unified partner? Do I want to be an athlete? You know, what is my next role? So an important part for us, because as we all know, Special Olympics is lifelong. And so if you have ideas or thoughts, I'm sure we're going to have some discussion as we go throughout the year, but feel free to let us know, and we're taking all suggestions because we want to make this worthwhile for you and your students. So, yeah, so Leslie, to your point, that's kind of what we had, was the card-sized inclusion tiles. We're trying to work with our North American office to figure out how we can order those and to price those out, to see if we can do a bulk order and maybe get some of those out to our schools. So stay tuned. We'll see what we can figure out with that. But for now, it is online and it is available to use. So on that note, Danielle, it's all you.
All right. Well, taking this school-wide initiative a little further, the YAC this year, the state YAC, is really going to be working on statewide youth communication and leadership. And within that, there's a few ideas that are still being tossed around because we haven't officially started our year yet. But as I mentioned yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever it was, they're looking at social media challenges. So starting in October, they'll be posting a challenge that will more than likely have some sort of active fitness component with it. But when they post that challenge, then encouraging students, and hopefully you can help us with this, to respond to that challenge. Post a picture of them completing it, or the students writing how they felt while doing the challenge, or whatever it may be related to that, so then they can start to get to know one another through that social media avenue. And I will say, once that starts, it will not stop. My students coming into the YAC, for the most part, only knew other students from their school that did Unified. And then when we went to events, I started introducing them to some of the students from other programs like Camp Shriver. And suddenly at the end of the day at summer games one year, they came to me and said, oh, do you know this athlete? Do you know this partner? Have you met this person? And it was tons of people I had never even heard of, but they love having the opportunity to network. And they're all so curious as to what's going on in other schools. So this is a step in that direction. They're also going to be writing at least a small portion of the UCS monthly newsletter. So please keep an eye out for that each month. Jamie sends that out. And feel free to share that with your students. At the same time, if you see something in there that our state YAC kids write and you have a question or your students have a question, send that back to us and we'll have those same YAC students send an answer to your group. We're always looking for those ways to communicate together. And then the third thing they're working on is webinars. These will be led by students for students, happening probably midwinter, looking at a January, February start. And official topics have not been decided yet, but they're looking at things like, what do you do when you hear someone say the R word? What are some ways that have worked for you to stop somebody from bullying? How do you make a new friend? Learning about Unified and its components. So they're things that our youth are still unsure about or are dealing with in their everyday lives that our group wants to tackle. Same with that, if you or your students have any ideas on things that could be discussed, send them our way. We would love to have them. And then, as Dan mentioned a little bit ago, book projects. I have a new obsession with learning about every book that has to do with inclusion and acceptance and people with special needs. So I have a stack of 15 of them actually next to me right now. But we are working on the books in a variety of ways. And one way that we think they could really be implemented and appreciated is in March's Reading Month. Anyone that has stepped into an elementary school in March knows how serious it is to get your books in, get your book count high. I know in the elementary building that I worked in, if they read enough books, the principal would dress up. The last year he was there, he dressed up in a pink ballerina costume. It was a very big deal. So we want to be a part of that. And just like we talked about earlier, things already happening at your school that you can just add Unified into. That's a great example of that. One of the books that I have right now is my new favorite. I don't know if you can see that well, but this is Don't Throw It to Mo. And this book is about a little boy who loves sports, and this one he loves football, but he's not super great at catching the ball. And he has a coach that works with him in a very silly way, and you're not sure if the coach is being helpful or not. And then they get to a team, and the other team is like, oh, that kid's no good, don't worry about him. But then in the end, you see that maybe we shouldn't have judged Mo by what we saw. So great resource. There are other books about Mo. And then if you want to implement your reading into your physical activities, this is one I target to elementary, but can be used for middle school and high school. We have Breathe Like a Bear. And these are all different kinds of breathing exercises, but made fun. There's one where it's called Flower Breath. And you imagine a flower in front of you. It's the most beautiful flower you've ever seen. And you breathe deeply to get the scent in, and it just kind of walks you through these breathing exercises. There's breathing exercises to calm down, to get energy, to clear your mind, to be creative. So a good thing to use after a young athlete session, at a practice if somebody is getting overwhelmed, or as part of a unified fitness group to kick it off or to finish off that day. And then if I'm trying to be more of an adult, this is my new favorite book. This is marketed for upper elementary and middle school, but I think the entire world should read it. Sunnyside Plaza is about adults living in a group home, And deaths start occurring at this group home that they think are natural, but there's a lot more to the story than there seems. And the whole thing is told through the point of view of a woman in her about 30s or 40s who has Down syndrome. And the author just did a great job of really representing that mindset without it being pandering or making it look like somebody with Down syndrome is weak, but showing the strength that is there. I read this book all in one sitting. I cried, I laughed, I got very angry at one point, so definitely worth it. It does talk a lot about a few different religions as well as dealing with that death topic. So if you have any trauma issues within your students, that's just something to keep in mind. Sunnyside Plaza. It's by Scott Simons. Absolutely wonderful. I do have extra copies of all of these books along with the other 12 sitting next to me, and I think 10 other titles in my office. So if you're interested in incorporating reading into your groups, whether it be with your young athletes, your older groups reading to younger groups, or for your older groups just to study on their own, please reach out to me. We can see what titles I have that work for you. I can send you some copies. It is something that if my numbers will get low, I will suggest just taking one copy and maybe recording yourself reading it. But absolutely amazing. I'm very obsessed with this right now. So if anyone wants to talk ideas with implementing the books, lessons to go along with them, I am definitely here. In addition to the books that I am now obsessed with, Dan or Jamie, one of the two, sent out an email today that has 3 documents attached to it. One of those documents is called the SOMI Unified Project List. Within that list, there are a variety of projects, resources, and activities that you can do with your students in person or virtually. And scrolling down to the 4th page of that packet, there is a link to the Special Olympics South Carolina book resource that I mentioned in the chat. And it also has a list of all of the books that are in that resource. There are a couple of them that I have copies of, a lot of them that I don't. But that's a good thing to direct you on more of your reading. This was something that I mentioned, this resource was in the Dropbox and I don't see it there anymore. However, the link in the document does still work, so it will still get you there. Is there any questions I can answer on social or state YAC outreach or on reading or anything else that I rambled about very quickly? While you're thinking about questions, I'm just going to tell you one more time, please, please, please read Sunnyside Plaza. So great.
Awesome. Yes, so Danielle put me on blast there. That we will send those resources out immediately after today. So you'll get those in your inbox soon. Now, when I said today, I was like, it's going out today, but.
Sorry, okay. I lied, but it's coming.
No, that's fine. All good. So you will get those. We put those together, it's like she said, for the conference. So we wanted you to have those to really start thinking of how you can plan this year. So a couple quick reminders, and then I got the video from Ann that we're going to send you off with. You're going to get out of here a little early today, and then we're going to stick around after the video for some questions if you'd like. So let me share my screen one more time. Oh, I do want to share my computer sound. All right. So tomorrow, awesome day tomorrow. We're fired up. You're going to hear from the students. Very excited. These are the topics that they put together. One of our athletes is going to talk about intergenerational leadership, where they're going to go into letting youth lead, how to host a YAC meeting, and what's enticing to them. Advocating for UCS, you're going to hear about one of our athletes that went to Washington, D.C. To promote Unified. What they want liaisons to know. You're going to get a crash course from them. And then some of their successes, their special projects. And we're going to end with a youth panel. So our ask to you this evening, with all the great ideas and information sharing and questions that have already come, we're going to ask you to think of some questions that you want to ask the students. So we'll leave a panel with them to wrap up. And then a couple reminders as well. First, what is the name of the new Special Olympics building? Little pop quiz. First correct answer is going to get some gear from us. So Jamie will be on that. So feel free to put that in the chat. And then today we're going to be hanging out again, 3 to 4. Answer any questions. It's been a small group each day, but it's been a ton of fun. So we'll gladly be hanging out from 3 to 4. Just jump on. Again, there's no true agenda. It's just us talking about our summer, and if you have questions specifically to Special Olympics, and then also if there's something you want to hear in day 4 of the conference or any ideas you have for us, let us know. And now I'm gonna share the video that Ann was gonna share, because it's really powerful. So enjoy.
Imagine a generation.
A generation that sees us
as equal.
Imagine a generation of respect.
Of acceptance.
Of diversity.
Of pride.
Of inclusion.
Of courage.
Of strength on the field and off the field.
Of friendship.
Of unity.
A generation that leads.
Together.
A generation that learns.
Together.
A generation that plays.
Together.
A generation of
game changers. This is our generation.
So if that doesn't get you fired up to hear from the students tomorrow, you may be at the wrong conference right now. So, so again, we're going to hang out. If anyone has questions, we're going to hang out for a couple minutes. Otherwise, I think you are dismissed for the day, unless you want to meet us at 3 o'clock today.